The idiot Lord marries 5 beautiful goddesses. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 176, Compensation for Mental Damage. A single sentence from Alex. It only took a single sentence to freeze Barry in place. Although Barry could think of over 1,000 deadly tricks and traps in the blink of an eye, he was unable to think of any at the moment. All of his plans had been crushed by the appearance of this man. And the holy power he possessed proved that he had the blessing of the goddess, and trying to take him down with a prank is akin to waging war against the goddess. If not blasphemy, then what? Compensate me with 100,000 gold coins for the mental damage you have caused my citizens. At that moment he was in a state of shock, so deep that he couldn't even think or process the words Alex had said. Far from it, a deadly feeling began to tingle on his back. He was the priest of Nevin, and seeing Nevin heading towards the land, he couldn't take it anymore and decided to set off for the capital. But when he heard about Nevin's rise, he thought that he could seize his power if he acted quickly, and at that moment, he received an anonymous letter and a chest containing 100,000 gold coins asking him to do all this. And if the propaganda is successful and he manages to lead the citizens against Alex, he might get a promotion, consolidating his position. Although he wanted to neglect it and didn't believe it at first, he decided to step forward since he had gotten the money, and also with this, he can deepen the people's trust in the religion. His power and authority will surely increase with the fall of the king. Without any nobles present to take advantage of this opportunity, he will make sure to maintain power and even prepared to attract 3 epic ranks to Nevin. But at that moment, he was alarmed to hear Alex's words. Because the amount of money he asked for was the same amount he had gotten from an anonymous person, and it made him somewhat sad to think whether or not Alex knew about it. Although King Alex doesn't have that kind of intelligence, what if Princess Alice helped him? Would that mean that she was playing right into the fire? A cold sweat began to run down his body. What happened? Did you go deaf upon hearing the amount, Your Majesty? 100,000 gold coins is not a small sum of money. How can this little priest from a remote place afford to pay such a ransom? I might not be able to earn that much money in my entire life, Barry asked with a pleading expression. When did I ask you to pay alone? Alex asked as he looked at all the white-robed men along with the guards and knights. I ask all of you to compensate? Since all of you actively participated in the collateral damage caused to my innocent citizens, all of you will participate in raising the sum. Your Majesty, please forgive us, the novice priest cried and knelt down as he began to plead along with the paladins and knights of the church. But Alex stood still and indifferent to his pleas and said, you have enough resources to unite 3 epic-ranked paladins under your command and move a force that even a small kingdom would find difficult to count on. But you don't have that much money. Do you think I'm a fool, or do you think I'm soft rice? Look at my people who have been frightened by your men. Look, that man lost the ability to walk from fear. That child lost consciousness from crying. That man lost all his money because of the crowd. Alex began to speak shamelessly and shouted, who will compensate them? Tell me, citizens of Nevin, am I right? Yes, compensate, compensated. Screams began to rise from the crowd as they saw Alex take revenge on them. But yours, no. Alex's loud shout echoed out, silencing the entire place and sending shivers down everyone's spines as its sound reverberated like thunder. I want 100,000 within a month, either that or I will personally pay a visit to get the main church's answer, Alex threatened in a stern voice. Barry narrowed his eyes as he saw Alex's resolute expression. The young man before him seemed as impenetrable as a fortress that cannot be breached no matter what. Recalling the previous display, if Alex were to visit the church, he would lose more than just his position, and Alex might even be appointed to a higher position by the Pope. Due to the holy aura released by Alex, Barry was certain of one thing: this guy should not be provoked no matter what. It's fine, Your Majesty, we will make it up to you, Barry said and bowed his head. Once again, I beg your forgiveness for my intractable behavior, Barry muttered before leaving with his henchmen. Alex sighed in relief seeing that everything was going well, and not only that, he managed to blackmail the person for a ransom. But it was all for the people, there was no greed in it. When he came into the scene, he was worried about whether or not anyone might see him using black magic in the war, because that would cause some serious problems. This matter is not as easy as it seems, Alex muttered to himself as he turned around to see his people with teary eyes calling out his name. Alex smiled back, nodded and walked through the crowd casually chatting with the people as he introduced his wives. They all bowed their heads in respect upon seeing his wives, but frowned upon seeing Christina's scars that were not hidden, even when she was wearing a veil. When Alex explained that Christina risked her life to protect his, everyone cried and even knelt down before Christina to thank her. The scene looked as if it was not Christina but her family members who were injured, and Christina saved the lives of her family members. He finally introduced Alice, but contrary to the previous excitement, the whole place fell silent. Alex sighed as he stroked Alice's head. You have to work hard, Alice, to win her approval. Chapter 177, Let's Make a Deal. Alex felt nostalgic after returning to his warm and cozy castle. And the first thing he saw upon entering his office was piles of pending paperwork. Sitting on the chair while doing paperwork was tiring, but with a cup of coffee in one hand and ribeye in the other, it was never boring. But Alex seemed to be pushed out of his seat, and his place had been taken by Christina. She looked more like her assistant than the actual owner. Alice and Christina seemed to be having a fight. Alex, who had been running like a dog here and there, wanted to rest while giving his eye a chance to enjoy the beauty, but his fantasy didn't last long. His Majesty Priest Barry of the Holy Church is here and wishes to speak with you. At that moment, a guard enters the palace and gives his report. All the people present in the room who were doing the work abruptly stopped, and all their gazes fell on Alex. Alex looked at Catherine and, after nodding briefly, walked towards the executive lounge and saw Priest Barry and a knight of epic rank who was respectfully waiting at the door. Behind them were a few novice priests dressed in clean clothes holding large chests. Seeing Alex's arrival, both of them put on a flattering smile and walked towards Alex. His Majesty Barry and all the members of the church came to greet your highness and apologize. Alex nodded and walked towards the platform and sat on the high throne while looking at them with an indifferent expression. What pleasure do I owe you? Alex asked in a cold tone. They were quite embarrassed upon hearing Alex's question, but Barry did not show any unpleasant expression and walked forward and gave a small bow. We are all ashamed of our behavior. His Majesty is a divine being who has shown us the vastness of heaven. That is why, after organizing everything and fixing up the church, we immediately came to visit him. After saying this, he signaled the novice priest to open the 5 huge chests they were carrying. As soon as the chest was opened, a golden light began to spread from it. Alex, who maintained an indifferent expression, inwardly cried out in happiness and his eyes shone with a money sign. All the chests were loaded with gold coins. We have brought what His Majesty asked us to bring. Barry signaled again and the priest placed the chest on the ground. Alex said nothing and stood in thought for a moment as he asked a man to verify whether the gold coins were real or fake. Alex had seen his fair share of scams in his previous life. Anyone who knows a fantasy story might have read or seen a scene where there was a box filled with gold on top, but inside everything was fake. The guards carried the gold-laden chest to the site and started going through the stuff. Alex stared at Barry for a moment, which made him feel threatened. Like a predator watching its prey before pouncing on it, Barry felt 2 dagger-like eyes that had been staring at him. Priest Barry, let's make a deal, huh? Barry was suddenly astonished. What does His Majesty want from this poor servant? Alex gave a crooked smile that conveyed a sense of weariness. You don't have to be afraid of me, Priest Barry, let's make a deal. Barry felt as if he had heard something wrong since they were priests, not merchants. First, I want you to bless all of my soldiers' equipment, Alex said as he watched Barry's reaction. Barry's face twitched, but he didn't dare to show his face. Your Majesty, of course, you don't need to do it for free, Alex said, and seeing Barry's silence he knew that Barry was somehow thinking about it. No matter if he wants to do it or not, in the end he's going to do what he's told to do. You can take 10,000 gold coins and I want you to help me buy mana crystals. We need mana crystals urgently. Since there's no big merchant to supply us with them. I'm sure the church gets crystals, and knowing how you get epic rank here, you can get some mana crystals too, right? Alex smiled. His golden merchant goose was in zenith, trying to lay the groundwork, and until it was established, Alex didn't want to get supplies from the merchant group that had been hiding and changing their route. Although they were able to get mana crystals, the quantity and quality were lower. But with Barry's help, he was confident that he would be able to get better quality mana crystals in larger quantities. I'll add some good words to our name, Priest Barry, if you do as I say. So, what's your opinion, Priest Barry? Alex asked. Both parties will benefit from the deal. Barry fell into deep thought as he contemplated the pros and cons while wondering about Alex's words. Although he tried hard to get out of the situation, he couldn't, and really, he didn't have that choice to begin with. Either make it big or fall. "I'll do as His Majesty asked me to and do my job faithfully," Barry said as he knelt on the ground showing his commitment. "Fine," Barry briefly nodded before leaving with his companions. "I don't know who asked you to do this or what their motive was, but if you ever think of betraying me or stabbing me in the back, you should ask Church about my battle. My slaughter on the battlefield would surely have been recorded. There were many forces watching me there too," Alex's hoarse voice sounded from behind. Barry gulped and looked at Alex, who was still smiling but didn't say more and left with a small bow. Seeing the annoyance disappear, Alex laughed. "What a divine opportunity, you are really evil. How to send the money." Time passed quickly. Chapter 178. With the arrival of Alex, the normally calm Nevin has gradually become more lively. The lifeless citizens had been completely rejuvenated by the sight of their king. In less than 10 days, King Alex would accept the bestowal of the title of Emperor Kinley and officially take the throne to become the 11th king of Nevin. In the past 3 weeks, Nevin had to go through too many changes, and in that process, Alex incredibly went from being a fool to true king within the hearts of the citizens of Nevin. Extensive sewer networks for sanitation have been laid along the wide streets and old buildings have been rehabilitated. A special post was built at the city gates where horses, carriages and wagons were placed. Special officers were selected to regulate the rules and laws of the city and were provided with a special headquarters. Most of the recruited soldiers were trained in the castle before, but now they have a separate building for training, and a specialized military academy has also been set up where anyone aged 12 and above can join. School and preschool programs are already underway and just need some time to be implemented, as there was a lack of manpower and personnel in that area. Catherine took the reins of management and gave Alex some laxity, but that didn't mean Alex was wasting his time. During the day, he would form a squad and march outside the city to hunt monsters and train with his squad. Although there were no alchemists in Amidon, there were some growth potions that could speed up growth. Alex diluted it and distributed it among the chosen ones, and they were ground like millstones under Alex's training routine. Each swordsman under his command had to swing their sword 5,000 times after training, while the archers had to hit 100 moving targets. It was much worse for the tankers, who were like punching bags where anyone could approach and vent their frustrations on them and push them to overcome their endurance. Overall, everyone was making progress and doing their best. In the castle, a large crowd gathered and everyone's eyes focused on the two individuals standing in the center of the ring. On one hand, there was Alex, who was doing some small stretches, while on the other hand, there was Jin, the legendary ranked knight who was assigned to protect Princess Alice. Alice, Raya, Catherine, and Christina looked at the scene with solemn expressions, while anyone who saw this situation would mock and laugh at Alex. 2 days ago, Alex submitted a request to fight against Tim, the legendary ranked knight, and it shocked everyone and made everyone think that he had gone crazy. But Alex got the approval to fight, as he said that both of them would seal their mana and compete with just the sword. It was a rare opportunity for Alex to try something different. He was recently facing some troubles and was thinking deeply about it. Alex's main swordsmanship was heavy iron swordsmanship and devil stance, which occupied the core accompanied by other minor moves as a supporting role. His swordsmanship was still in the development phase and still now only consists of a single move known as Starlight Slash. Although it consists of only one move, that very move was able to cut everything. After all, it was the same move that crushed the holy war goddess Excalibur and defeated her, though she did not believe the results, thinking that he cheated and the queen goddess helped him. But now he can't use his swordsmanship like he would use Starlight Slash with this kind of body. At worst his body would burst unable to withstand the pressure, or at best he would lose his hands. Now then, when it comes to other sports taught by the goddess of war, that was also a big no for now. There might be a warrior who could identify them, though they are very rare. Except for Excalibur, most of the goddess of war's swordsmanship has been replicated. Though it wasn't as good as the original version, there still shouldn't be any great warrior who was so brain dead that he couldn't identify the moves that had some essence of it. And since Alex was an idiot for 19 years of his life, how could he possibly know the moves that take countless years to learn, let alone master? He can dismiss the church by saying that the goddess Rebecca had blessed him with holy power in his dreams, but it wouldn't be absurd if someone claimed that the goddess of war blessed him and the next day he knew about all of this. So for now, he had to test himself and see how effective he was at using the most basic sword technique, or if he could gain the recognition of this legendary knight, and who knows, maybe he could learn his sword techniques. He can also copy his sword movements and try to figure them out or incorporate them into his sword dance. Alex tapped his sword and pointed while Tim briefly nodded to represent his respect for him. Tim responded to the courtesy and asked Alex to go first, giving him the chance to strike first as a junior. The soldiers of Nevin and Kinley call out for their respective favorites. Christina's eyes sparkled when she saw them, and her heart began to burn with a fiery passion to fight. Christina, who was deep in thought, suddenly felt a tap and turned around to see Catherine's worried expression. She put her hand to her ears and whispered, "Christina, will it be okay for Alex to do this? Isn't he a knight of legendary rank? Alex would be easily defeated and that would cause the soldiers to lose morale. Why don't you just say that you're worried about my lord's safety?" Rai muttered with a smile, but looked to the side upon receiving Catherine's gaze. "Catherine, everything will be fine. They are competing solely in sword movements and have sealed their powers. Therefore, rank will not matter in this match," Christina assured Catherine. Chapter 179, Duel 2. "It will still be difficult for my brother no matter how much of a genius he is, but I still believe in him," Alice chimed in. "It was never about winning or losing. Alex is just testing his limit and current strength. Since there is an expert here, wouldn't it be a waste to not seek his guidance?" Christina explained. Everyone nodded upon hearing Christina's explanation. On Alice's orders, Kinley's staff was assisting the Nevin soldiers in their training who have benefited greatly due to this. Not only did they become better, but it also made them open their eyes to the strength of the world and broaden their horizons. Otherwise, they would be frogs sitting at the bottom of the well thinking highly of themselves after gaining Amidan. As Alex and Tim raised their swords, the screams and cries echoing in the surroundings gradually died down. The surroundings blurred and gradually grew darker as the two of them focused on each other. It was as if they had entered a world where only the two of them were present. Tim looked at Alex and felt that he was going to put up an exciting fight. He didn't need to say that he was surprised as the expression in his eyes faded. It was a common hallucination when two sword masters dueled with utmost concentration. He could feel the sword master's aura radiating from Alex, which startled him. When Alex asked him for a match, he simply saw it as a teaching session where he let the young man realize his weakness and discover his strength, but at that moment he felt that the person in front of him was a strong opponent who put up a strong fight that gave him a feeling of decadence. Tim gently smiled looking at Alex as he wondered how much this child would have grown if he was still in the royal palace. But unfortunately, he will never know the answer. "King Alex, I will treat you as an equal opponent to me from now on, so be careful," Tim said with a small smile on his face. "Let's begin," Alex muttered. SSSSHHH. At the same time they took a deep breath calming their nerves, then a loud clicking sound was heard spreading throughout the place. It was hard to tell who struck first and who had the advantage in the first clash. It only takes a simple clash of swords and the impact of the blades to cause small blinding sparks to fly. Alex felt that he was at a slight disadvantage in the strength aspect, as even if they had sealed their mana, Tim was still physically stronger than him and must have a strong physique. It was only because Alex focused on his physical growth and strengths most of the time due to being unable to awaken mana, that he was able to handle Tim. On top of that, his mana heart improves his physique gradually. Tim, who noticed something, tried to test Alex's physical condition first and swung his sword more fiercely than before. Alex channeled all of his energy equally into his arms to attack while using his legs to support his upper body as he propelled himself forward. A sound resembling a small explosion was heard along with the shrill screeching of metallic friction due to the blades sliding against each other and the cutting of the wind echoing everywhere. Curse. 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 Clank. 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 Due to the impact, small shockwaves were created that caused ripples in the air, and sweat and sand splashed and sprayed all over the place as both of them mixed with each other with the swords. At that moment, unlike before, a loud cheer was heard and the crowd watching the battle fell silent from the shock. The two fighting in front of them looked like masters of the sword and did not even blink in order not to miss the moment of their fight. The transcendent rank knights and the experienced soldiers looked at the scene with eyes filled with astonishment. It took them some time to notice the abnormality, but as the match dragged on they could see Alex's movements, which were quite simple. Unlike Tim, who used the swordsmanship they had been taught in Kinley, Alex countered the movements with the basic sword movements. Horizontal slash, vertical slash, slice, thrust, stab, block, and parry. Alex's swordsmanship did not have any variety except the basic movements, but the skill in using the movements made him look like a veteran soldier who had been through countless battles. He would block attacks or those he could and wait for the opening gap, then counterattack with a stab or a strike or rotate his body using the momentum developed due to the clash. His skill in utilizing the movements and throwing out the feints made it difficult for one to predict the next one. Alex's heart was beating rapidly and his arms began to ache as both swords clashed. Alex gritted his teeth and bit his lips to keep from falling. Although he could control the aspect of strength thanks to his battle experience, his stamina was still far less than Tim's. After all, although Alex wasn't mentally tired, his master rank body still had a limit even though his stamina was comparable to epic rank, but a legendary rank was a league of its own as it was the rank where one transcends the very limit of mortals and breaks through the shackles of the mortals. It was quite a quantum leap, and many even failed to advance to this point and were stuck in the transcendent rank. The difference between a legendary rank and a transcendent rank was similar to the difference between a squire rank and a master rank under normal circumstances. Unless one was a monster like Alex or his wives blessed by the goddess, it was truly difficult to fight across the ranks. Blood began to drip from Alex's nose, but he was too busy deflecting the attack to notice. Tim felt Alex's determination and the feelings he was transmitting through his sword. Chapter 180, Duel 3. Tim could feel the hard work and effort Alex had put into practicing to hone his skills. The boy before him was born an imbecile, with no one to care for him, and when he reached adulthood he was unfortunately kicked out of home. From being fat or not being able to walk properly and being ridiculed all over the world, to the current one, who was as fit as a horse. And whose strength and realm had been increasing greatly. How much effort did this boy who was born with below-average physical traits put into training, and how many times did he encounter a wall he was unable to overcome? How many times did he feel hopeless, unable to find a proper direction to move forward until he earned his way through sheer will and determination? Those who trained to death and went through hell knew all too well the value of hard training and can only know the amount of effort put in by others. Even on his way to the legendary rank, he despaired many times, lost his direction along the way, and just to reach this level he had trained to exhaustion. But even though he lived a hard life, he had companions and received sincere guidance from his elders. But the boy had no one to guide and care for him. Other than his wives, he had no one he could convey his feelings to and suppress his stress. And it is not even known how close he was to his wives, who were forced to marry him against their will. As Tim felt the emotions transmitted to him by each strike, he suddenly noticed that something was not right. With each strike of the sword, vibration spread throughout his body. Wait, Tim, who was momentarily lost in his thoughts as he brandished his sword, unconsciously frowned for a moment. Clash. Alex stopped his forward slash and changed the direction of the sword's trajectory and delivered a half slash which Tim quickly reacted to, but the blade passed just millimeters away from his cheek. Crackle. Tim could hear a small cracking sound, which could be due to joints loosening or fractures in Alex's arms. He could see eyes devoid of any emotion and a face that seemed to be completely immersed in a sword strike from Alex. Although Alex seemed to exhaust his body and was filled with sweat and his breathing became labored, his attack only became more and more ferocious. Tim was stunned for a moment and reacted instinctively as he raised his sword vertically and slashed towards Alex with all his strength. The edge of Tim's sword flew forward to split Alex in two, but he twisted his body forcefully at the last moment as he quickly leaned to the side to dodge the strike. The sword struck the ground and Tim used a bit of his strength to swing the sword and couldn't help but slash the ground. A small cloud of sand flew up. Alex's eyes flashed as he dodged the attack and suddenly ran around Tim and launched himself at his back. Alex ran as agile as a cheetah, jumping on his back, his legs grabbing Tim's lower body as he raised his sword and swung it horizontally. Tim's eyes flashed and he spun his body with great momentum, throwing Alex off balance, and he quickly pulled his sword back and raised it to block Alex's attack. Clash. A series of metallic sparks flew as Tim intercepted Alex's attack, thrusting his sword away and throwing Alex off his back. Alex spun his body in midair and landed on his feet. Tisk. Alex snapped his body in annoyance as this was a chance to end things. What an extraordinary answer, King Alex, Tim smiled as he pointed his sword at Alex. A small ripple erupted from him, causing the sand and dust on the ground to be blown away some distance away. His sword began to glow with a faint blue light. I know we promised not to use mana, but that doesn't mean we can't use sword aura. Seeing your ability, I think it would be a waste if we don't fight with all our might today. You can also use sword aura, right? Tim's words left everyone dumbfounded for a moment. Although they were very surprised by Alex's ability to match Tim, Alex's ability to use aura was truly beyond their reach. "Hey. What?" the soldiers muttered amongst themselves and thought if they heard something wrong, and looked at Alex with a hint of anticipation. Alex flashed a playful grin and raised his eyebrows. "So, let's do this, huh?" Alex's body began to glow and his eyes flashed with a crimson flash, and a crimson aura enveloped his sword as he pointed it at Alex. "Everyone, step back, also place a barrier," Tim ordered his man. All the knights began to surround the area as others stepped back. A light flashed and a barrier began to form around the arena, trapping Alex and Tim. Tim gently waved a sword in his hand, aiming at Alex. A powerful sword strike flew out from a simple swing of his sword in the air. Surprisingly, before it reached Alex, it collided with something which exploded in the middle. "Line up." Tim simply swung his sword lightly to test the waters and realized that the previous strike was easily neutralized by Alex. Alex was losing in terms of physical prowess as the battle dragged on, but in terms of the sword aura, it even gave him a sense of fear. Alex's aura seemed a bit denser than his own, but only after clashing with his own. So, he decided to act seriously. "Alex, I will seal my strength to epic rank," Tim shouted to warn Alex. Tim raised his sword and took a stab at Alex. A sword manifested before Alex and was shot towards Alex with terrifying speed. Chapter 181, Cheater. Alex heard Tim's statement and his lips curved upwards. "Forcing yourself this far can already be considered a victory," Alex muttered to himself as he watched Tim advance. Alex took a step back with his right to shift his strength while pressing his left foot forward and quickly raised his sword, fiercely brandishing it to deflect the incoming attack. A powerful shockwave erupted as soon as the attacks collided with each other. When Alex saw Tim's movements, he realized that they were quite fluid and natural. It was as if his body and mind were one with his sword. Furthermore, there were powerful shockwaves that exploded whenever his sword collided with it. If Alex had any doubts before, he was now certain of it. Tim was no ordinary legendary rank knight. He was then 29 years old, and anyone capable of reaching the fort below the age of 30 would be labeled as a genius, and if they achieved it below the age of 25, they would be hailed as a monster of the generations across the continent. Tim must have a higher status among knights of his same rank, and that was why that elder of his had sent him as a bodyguard. Alex could see that Tim was different from his peers, and although he was of a legendary rank, he was not lacking in the courtesy that one forgets when stepping foot here. Alex exhaled deeply as his mana heart began to beat faster and stronger, washing away all of his tiredness as his complexion began to change. His pale face and tiredness were already beginning to fade away. The use of aura had surely given him a boost, and he could let loose a bit. Tim swung his sword, and what followed was a strong gale that began to blow out of nowhere. Alex unknowingly let out an exclamation of surprise as a strong gust of wind hit his face as a single sword strike created a storm that swept through the entire area. Alex fell into deep contemplation on his next move, as he was only using a simple sword technique so far, but Tim has used a technique known as Storm Sweep. Alex thought about slashing him with a strong slash using his aura, but a mischievous idea struck him. "I think I can copy a little. Would that be nice? After all, I'm just stealing from my home, right?" Alex muttered. He lunged forward and used his sword to counter Tim's move. Storm Sweep. Following Alex's strike, a massive storm followed by a tempest collided with Tim's storm and neutralized the attack by dispersing with strong winds. "You're ruining my hairstyle?" Alex complained, but what greeted him was a strong and powerful beam of blue light directed towards him that wreaked havoc as it cut through the storm. Suddenly, beams of light erupted from Alex's sword, and he thrust his sword and plunged it downwards. A crimson beam of condensed aura was fired by Alex that added chaos all around and created a huge shockwave that caused a massive explosion that shook the entire barrier. "We should stop the match," Catherine muttered as she saw that things were getting out of hand. "Alice, order your knight to back off," Catherine said with a stern expression. "But Big Brother is still fighting. Tim will control his power well," Alice said, trying to calm Catherine along with the others. Christina assured Catherine that Alex would be fine, but Catherine, who refuted her words, saw the cloud of dust dissipate and saw Alex and Tim standing there unharmed. All the people present there couldn't help but stare blankly as they were filled with majesty and awe. As soon as the dust cleared, its image distorted and disappeared from its spot. Small shockwaves began to erupt within the barrier that resounded like thunder one after another. Due to multiple shockwaves, small cracks began to appear on the gradually closing barrier after the knights poured in their mana, But they were so focused on watching the match that they forgot to fix the cracks. Bang! With a loud explosion, a figure was thrown to the ground and slid along the ground for a few meters before rolling his body and standing up. Alex staggered back a little and looked like a beast that had used up all of its energy. Although his eyes were shining with a fiery fighting spirit, he was truly on the verge of fainting due to exhaustion. Alex could use a healing spell to heal himself, but that would be blatant disrespect towards Tim, who had recognized him as an enemy. Tim appeared before Alex and launched a horizontal punch. Alex parried and deflected the punch, but his body shook a little, barely keeping his balance before Alex could follow Tim's movements. Tim was already on the second punch. But Alex bent his back until his nose touched the ground, allowing the sword to pass over his face with a calm breath, and kicked Tim's leg while using that momentum to flip his body and move back a few distances. Bang! Tim was shocked to see Alex's flexibility, which surprised him greatly, and Alex's kick impacted his torso, making him lose his balance. Alex landed back on his feet and took a step forward. Channeling his strength into his legs, he propelled his body with extreme speed as he thrust the tip of the sword into Tim's chest, who lost his balance. Before Tim could balance himself and snap out of the shock, Alex's sword arrived before his eyes. Although he knew Alex would stop before it killed him, his sixth sense and instinct that had been honed by countless battles and fights unconsciously activated as his sixth sense sent him a warning signal of impending danger. His eyes narrowed and he unleashed his full strength. The terrifying burst of power took Alex by surprise, and before he could stop his body, he was assaulted by Tim's power as Tim unleashed his full strength, and Alex was thrown straight away. Cheater! Alex's scream echoed as his body flew like a ragdoll and crashed into the barrier. Chapter 182, Let Me Warm the Bed. Alex's supposed defeat, which Tim won by cheating, was imprinted in his mind, which ignited his fire to challenge him once again and crush him completely. But he decided to grow stronger and then challenged him so that he could kick his ass in the next round and take revenge for his humiliation. Alex was truly shocked at that moment. How can he know that the man who reached a legendary rank will suddenly erupt like a maniac in fear for life? It's not like Alex was really about to kill, as it was just a sparring match. Due to the strong coercion and the terrifying explosion of his mana, Alex's body was invaded by Tim's mana that had been creating havoc within him. He wasn't at the legendary level, so he couldn't protect himself from Tim's mana invading him, and a low-level healing spell wouldn't work on him. And higher-level healing spells are a big no, and using them would create a mess, as the Kinley Knights might become vigilant about it. Until Alex visits the church in Kinley and declares that he had an epiphany due to the goddess blessing, he won't be able to use a high-level healing spell. His face had turned pale as he slowly tried to expel the mana invading his body, which took him a few hours. It was Alex's mastery in channeling his mana and his superior breathing technique that helped him take care of it quickly. Otherwise, if it were anyone else, he would surely be in trouble. Alex, who was already in a bad mood, was scolded even further by Catherine. "Who told you to show off to legendary grade warrior only to get beaten up and thrown around?" Catherine shouted. "You should get stronger before you try to show off." Alex almost clutched his chest to stop the pain due to Catherine's words that were enough to make him vomit blood. Emotional damage? Why are you so careless? You could have died. Your condition doesn't seem good either. Ribaya and Christina sighed as they saw Catherine scolding like a mother. "Catherine, this isn't a problematic situation. You're saying this because you're not aware of the full extent of Alex's ability, since you're not a combatant. Alex could easily heal himself. In fact, his healing power can rival even that of top-tier priests, but he can't use it now, as you know," Christina muttered. "Still, don't be careless like this time," Catherine shouted at Alex. Alex pinched his forehead and rubbed it a little to soothe the pain in his head. He really wanted to spank this girl. But he was happy with the idea that Catherine was worried about him, and a good husband shouldn't make his wife worry, and so he nodded at his wife's every word like an obedient child. Ribaya, who was wiping the sweat off of Alex, who was lying on the bed in a loose buttoned shirt, exposing Alex's well-toned boyhood, feasted her eyes on Aild's charming figure, and a sudden thought came to her mind. Her eyes turned pink as she saw Alex's casual look filled with sweat, giving him a new kind of freshness. With his irritated expression and his upper half exposed, Aild looked like a bad boy, attracting everyone's attention. Even Catalina and Christina weren't shy away from glancing at Alex's bare chest from time to time. Alice's advice to be proactive and move forward surged through her mind, and she felt an irresistible thirst to quench her thirst. She gulped as the more she thought about it, the more uneasiness she felt. "I should take a chance today," Ribaya muttered to herself, clenching her fist as her eyes burned with a fiery passion. Alex noticed Ria's strange look and felt that something was wrong with her. Ria's body seemed to heat up and her face began to redden as her breathing became heavy. Her face had flushed red as she looked at him like he was a delicious meal. Alex was shocked by Ria's condition and felt his lust slowly rising. As he wondered what was going to happen now, Ria, who was sitting near him, suddenly stood up with a resolute look. Ria turned her gaze towards Catherine and Christina and muttered, "I'll take care of the Lord and help him stop the demonic coercion. Since I'm epic ranked, my presence would be more helpful than you two's, so I think you two should head back," Ria said as she tried to remain calm. "Hey, can't we just stay here?" Catherine asked, tilting her head. "No," Ria flatly refuted. "Your presence will disturb us. Besides, I have to take care of my lord and concentrate properly, and your presence may ruin things." But Christina tried to speak, but before she could say, Ria quickly pulled Christina and Catherine away. "I'll be staying with my lord today and helping him out. You two should get some rest too," Ria said and kicked them out as she closed the door with a loud thud. Lock. Alex's eyes narrowed as he watched Ria slam the door fiercely as she turned to him with a mischievous smile. Alex shuddered for a moment as he wondered what kind of devilish thoughts were boiling inside him. Somehow, he felt like tonight was going to be fun. Alex raised his eyebrows as he saw Ria's cute mischievous smile that stirred his feelings. Alex wanted to smile as he saw her eyes shining with desire, but he tried to keep an indifferent face. She looked like a damn succubus, and when she noticed Alex's piercing gaze, her body shuddered a little. She lowered her gaze as she felt rather shy since the two of them were alone, but she clenched her fist to shake off the shyness. "I have to make a place in my lord's heart that belongs only to me so that no other woman can snatch it away from me." With the lord's increasing popularity, she was sure that the five of them would join together soon, and she would have less time to enjoy with the lord, so she should savor every moment she had with him. Although she momentarily felt ashamed of taking such a bold action, she must do it for her future happiness, and there was nothing to be ashamed of since the lord was her husband. As if trying to reason and strengthen her resolve, she tightened the hem of her long skirt and walked towards Alex. "My lord, please don't hate me even if this is too abrupt," Ria said softly, weak as a mosquito with a reddened face. "Let this servant of yours warm your bed tonight." "Hey. What do you mean?" Alex asked, but before he could finish his sentence, Ria closed the distance quickly. Alex couldn't keep up with her words because Ria slammed his mouth shut with a sweet kiss and sucked on his tongue. "Chup. Chup. Mama I. Mama I. Ria's tongues tangled with Alex's who, though surprised by the sudden development, found it rather pleasant and didn't resist Ria as she wrapped one of her arms around his neck and sat on his thigh while starting to caress his chest with another. With a warm and deep kiss, the sleepless night began. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 183, Let Me Warm the Bed. Even though the room was dimly lit and covered in darkness, it couldn't cover Ria's voluptuous figure as she came closer and started climbing onto Alex's thighs quite gracefully. She looked like a naughty and charming succubus who could take the lives of men with her sweet innocent expressions that didn't match her well-defined body. The only thing she was missing now was a pair of horns that would light up the whole scene. Alex even wondered how much importance the goddess gave to create such a beauty. But even after this, it was quite regretful to think that such a heaven-defying beauty had the potential to soar into heaven, which was abandoned by her parents. It would always be a bitter moment for Ria, but Alex would make sure to fill the void and make up for all the love Ria had been deprived of. Alex could hear Ria's chest start to throb crazily as she moved closer and kissed him violently. "Ugh. Ria!" Alex muttered as Ria kissed him deeply, invading his mouth with her tongue. "Cheer up. Cheer up." Ria sat on Alex's thigh and devoured his lips, trying to touch the taste of his lips. Their tongues were deeply entangled as they exchanged saliva while exploring the insides with their tongues. Ria's body started to heat up like a ball of fire as she started kissing, and her eyes became cloudy. Not only that, Alex's things that revealed his presence beneath her were stimulating her more and more. Her brain started to melt just by kissing her, and Alex could notice the change in Ria's expression, which made him smile. There was a slight purplish tint in Ria's eyes that seemed to indicate that lust was taking over her. Although Raya had lost her virginity and it wasn't her first time, she was still quite inexperienced, and Alex was the first man and would be the last man for her. Following her instinct, she continued to kiss him as if she wanted to eat Alex whole, but surely there was some inexperienced part of her. Still, her inexperienced way of kissing stimulated Alex, making the bulge underneath rise even more. Alex felt like he would explode if this continued as Raya kissed him non-stop. Alex forcefully separated his lips from Raya's and murmured, "Raya, calm down. I'm not going anywhere. You don't have to strain yourself. I'm already yours and you're mine. So let's take things slow and enjoy," Alex whispered into Raya's ears. When Alex's hot breath brushed her ears, it stimulated her even more. Alex kissed Raya, taking the initiative this time, and slowly ran her hand down. She caressed Raya's neck, her arms, and her slim waist as she ran her hand down her body, trying to feel the warmth. Raya became more sensitive as her entire body heated up and trembled at Alex's touch filled with warmth and love. The moment Alex's hands reached her waist, he caressed her thigh with his other hand gently and wrapped his other arm around her waist. Alex's lips parted from Raya's, and he raised his lips and gently kissed Raya's slender neck and licked it. Ew, Raya let out a loud moan unknowingly. It was said that when a woman's body is properly aroused, her body becomes more sensitive. In particular, in Raya's case, the excitement was at its peak and Raya trembled and moaned softly at Alex's gentle touch. The thighs that Raya was sitting on were already starting to get wet. Haha, as the caress continued, Alex placed his lips on Raya's neck, beginning to devour her slowly. Raya shuddered and moaned as she felt the soft, tender lips on her body. Eventually, they kissed each other more and more, then down the nape of her neck, then down her collarbone to her chest, marking it with dots that marked their territory. After playing around as he pleased, Alex finally removed Raya's straps, unbuttoned her dress and pinned her down onto the bed. Raya shuddered a little as the clothes that wrapped her tightly fell away as soon as it was unbuttoned and the two mountaintop mounds rose to their full glory. She felt a little embarrassed subconsciously and wrapped her arms around her chest, but it was too hard there, with large assets bouncing crazily. "Why are you so embarrassed? I've seen it all, haven't I?" Alex said with a smirk. "My lord, it's not fair," Raya complained with a pouting expression and grabbed Alex's pants and pulled them down. Wow, Raya grabbed the sword in surprise, seeing the huge sword rising in all its majesty, flying high. Not only was it long but it was also too thick. "Is that what was inside me last time?" Raya exclaimed in surprise as she saw the blood vessel pulsing in it. "Was it this big all the time?" Raya asked with a curious expression. Unlike Alex, who had seen her naked once, she had been taking care of Alex and knew every nook and cranny of Alex. She had also seen that thing of Alex before, but it was in no way comparable to the one before. Alex felt a little embarrassed seeing her expression filled with curiosity and scratched her cheek. Alex knew that her thing was inhumanly big. She wasn't the type to believe in bigger being better, as too big can make things worse. Good techniques with a decent size can do wonders, and although Alex didn't know how big his thing was before, he was sure that it would be average or below average. It was only thanks to the blessing of the goddess of lust that his thing had been slowly growing. Alex, seeing Raya's expression, couldn't hold back any longer and he longed for her lips, giving her a deep passionate kiss as he entered Raya, who was quite wet. "Ah!" Raya moaned lightly and her body shook and Alex's body started to rock back and forth in a rhythmic motion. Raya started to feel ecstasy for Alex with each thrust. "My lord! My lord!" Raya screamed out Alex's name as she noticed Alex stopping her idea. "Call me Alex, otherwise I will stop," Alex said with a stern expression. "But my lord." "Alex. Call me Alex." Raya breathed heavily seeing Alex's serious expression and raised her arms, wrapping them around his neck, and looked at him with lustful eyes. "Alex. Can you please?" Raya murmured softly, biting her lips. "Yes, Raya." Alex smiled mischievously and pinched Raya's breast. "Ouch!" Raya moaned with a sullen expression. Before she could complain, Alex started thrusting as he sealed Raya's lips with a kiss. Raya wrapped her legs around Alex's waist and her breathing became labored and she started moaning loudly. Both their skins rubbed against each other, giving each other heat. Haha. Raya's chest rubbed against Alex's, giving him a pleasurable feeling that stimulated him further and made him excited. His things hardened and enlarged as Raya's insides began to squeeze him and Alex began to speed up, bringing her to the height of ecstasy. They both reached ecstasy and Alex whispered in Raya's ears as he sped up his movement, "Raya, you innocent succubus, I love you so much." Chapter 184, Christina's curiosity. Alex, after repeating the intense training session 2 more times, finally pulled out his weapon as he looked at Catherine, who was breathing heavily. Her 2 jade mountain peaks rose and fell and swayed like jelly as her chest rose and fell. It was very stimulating and made Alex's passion burn once again. He had enough strength and stamina to continue until dawn or until Ribaya squeezed him dry, but for now he can't. He had been given a strict warning about this. Ribaya is a little different from others. If he wanted to enjoy it for hours, he could do so with his other wives, but not with Ribaya. Drowning in pleasure can lead to addiction, and while it's okay for others, it wouldn't be okay for Ribaya, because if the feeling of lust and drowning in pleasure takes over her mind, a natural calamity will occur. Alex can suppress Ribaya, but what would happen in his absence when Ribaya suddenly gets aroused? Ribaya needs to reach the legendary level to have full control of her power, so for now, even if it's troublesome, she has to hold it back. Ribaya, who was breathing heavily, stared at Alex, who was sitting on the edge of the bed as he stroked her soft, silky hair while admiring Ribaya's body. She had a perfect harmony and her body was quite well proportioned. She had fat where it was needed and her waist was quite slim with smooth, slender legs. "My lord. Alex, don't you want to continue?" Ribaya asked. "Why aren't you satisfied so far?" Alex asked with a smile. "No, I'm completely satisfied, but it seems like your thing isn't satisfied yet," Ribaya muttered as she pointed at Alex's thing that was still in its glory. "No, it's okay. It'll calm down in time. You should clean yourself up," Alex said as she saw Ribaya drenched in sweat while the bed was wet with her love juices. "Alex, if it's a problem I can use your hand," Ribaya suggested as she looked at Alex's large sword. "Are you interested in doing that?" Alex asked as she pointed at her thing. Ribaya nodded and moved her hand towards it, but before she could touch it, ring. The door opened with faint rays of light which startled both Alex and Ribaya. Ribaya, who was scared by someone's sudden appearance, pulled the blanket with all her might and wrapped it around herself as quickly as possible, curling up like a scared kitten as she crawled under it. Alex's clothes that were on one side flew off and fell on the other side. Alex looked for something to grab onto, but before she could grab anything the water had already split and her entire body froze for a moment. She lifted her chin to see Christina stop after taking a step with an abrupt expression with her jaw wide open as she looked, shifting between Alex and her bottom. Alex didn't know if Christina, who was frozen like a statue, was shocked to see him naked or to see his thing. Whatever the reason was, he was so embarrassed that he wanted to dig a hole and hide in it. Even though it was Christina, his wife, and she saw everything, he couldn't get rid of the feeling of being caught doing something wrong. Moreover, Ribaya had herself, throwing him into such an ugly situation. "Ribaya, is this how you treat your husband who just showered you with love? It's wrong and unethical of a wife. Shouldn't a wife share all the happy and bad moments? How can you leave me open?" Alex complained to himself with tears in his eyes. Alex, who didn't know what to do, tried to cover it with his hands, but still, it was too big to be covered with his palms. Christina, who had come back because she had left something here, was shocked to see Alex naked, but more than that, she was stunned to see that big and powerful thing for Alex. For a girl like her, it was obvious that she was interested in the opposite sex. Although she wasn't too interested in the opposite sex, seeing it with her own eyes, she couldn't hide her curiosity at all. She tried to calm herself down and pointed at Alex with a curious expression that looked like she was only interested in gaining knowledge. "Those are the things used for reproduction?" Christina asked with a genuine expression. She wasn't too ignorant and only knew the general procedures, but she just lacked deep knowledge and, yes, experience as well. Alex nodded her head vigorously, unable to know what to say. "Isn't it too big?" "No, I think it's too big. Can it fit inside a girl who's supposed to receive it? Wouldn't it be uncomfortable? Also, are all men like this? I mean, is this the average size? Does everyone have things this big? Does that mean there are also men with things bigger than this?" Christina asked questions as if it was a quick round of Q&A. Alex felt like the world was spinning when he heard Christina's question. That brought him to the brink of tears. "No, in my case it's only mine. There are others much smaller than mine. You don't know that your husband is a monster under the bed. You'll soon find out how talented he is. Just wait for that day." Alex spouted all kinds of nonsense. "Shit. What the hell am I saying? So, is that thing always like this?" Christina asked as she noticed him standing. Cough. Cough. Alex coughed loudly and spoke in an embarrassed tone. "Christina, can I put something on before I answer?" As soon as Christina nodded, Alex ran to the other side of the bed where Riya had thrown his pants and shirt and put them on as quickly as possible. Riya, who had been hiding, put on an apologetic expression as she hid under the blanket only to be glared at by Alex. Should I pull the blanket? Alex thought to himself. He was sure Christina knew Riya was hiding there and believed she was asleep. Alex consoled himself with the thought that Christina didn't come in when they were doing the deed, otherwise he wouldn't be able to face her out of embarrassment. Alex quickly took off his clothes, his pants unable to contain the huge bulge. But by the way, Christina, did you need something? Christina nodded and pointed. Yes, I need that sword. Alex saw the direction Christina was pointing and subconsciously closed his leg with a puzzled expression. Christina, what are you saying? I mean the sword behind you on the table. Alex sighed in relief and took the sword, placing it behind the table and handing it to Christina with a shy expression. Christina took the sword and watched Alex's discomfort as she handed the sword to him. Do you need anything else? Christina shook it off and pondered for a moment, but Alex tried to shoo her away before she threw out another wild question. Alex, who seemed to be calm, suddenly heard Christina's voice from outside the door, which mortified him. I'll wait for that day. Chapter 185, There is no such thing as absolute loyalty. After a night filled with embarrassment, Riya didn't even look at Alex and avoided his gaze whenever she saw him and blushed a little, making the atmosphere quite awkward. And things got more aroused at the training session where Alex was training with Riya and Christina while Catherine was forced to lift heavy weights. Alex, should Riya continue with her training regimen? Won't she give birth soon? Cough, cough. Alex coughed violently upon hearing Christina's words and nearly choked while Riya covered her face in embarrassment. Even Catherine, who was doing her weightlifting session, nearly lost her balance and looked at Alex and Riya with a strange look. Although she was surprised to hear about Alex's breakthrough in Riya's case, she was shocked to hear about babies. No. Doing so doesn't always result in a baby, Alex said hurriedly as he made up his mind to properly educate her on the subject. It was a good thing that her sister Alice hadn't heard it, otherwise she wouldn't be able to show her face. Alex, who noticed Christina's curious gaze and feared that she might ask more questions, hurriedly interjected, Christina and Riya, I think today's training is enough. You may leave now. I need to supervise Catherine's training. Before Christina could mutter anything else, Riya quickly pushed her away like a swift wind. Alex breathed a sigh of relief and looked at Catherine and ordered her to continue her training quickly. Unlike her general long skirt clothing, she wore a shirt made for women designed by Alex with leather armor attached to her body. She took each step with shaky legs while a huge rod with 2 large weights at the end of it. Alex looked at Catherine and sighed. Catherine didn't like training. She seriously hated physical labor. When Alex tried to force her to train, she tried to make various excuses by saying that she would handle the administration and other things, so there was no need for her to train since she wouldn't be on the front lines. Alex had expected her to be a disciple rank earlier, but he became quite saddened after seeing her at the squire rank. She had stopped everything once she awakened mana because she thought that this was enough. On top of that, she had an above-average level of potential, unlike his other wives who had been born geniuses and had been fed a golden spoon in terms of potential. Riya had reached the peak of the epic rank and only needed a boost to break through to the transcendent rank, while Christina had broken through to the master rank and her soul wounds under Alex's constant care had been greatly healed. Alex himself had reached the peak of master rank and if he wanted to, he could step up to epic rank quite easily, but he refrained from taking the step for now. When he increased his strength forcefully, Alex's strength should have regressed and his rank should have dropped from master rank due to the repercussions. Fortunately, he didn't fall from master rank but instead, his foundation was damaged a bit. And the foundation matters a lot and many people who neglect to set up a good foundation regret it later when they reach the top level. A good foundation is like the foundation of a tower, which determines how many floors can be built. If it is weak, the tower may fall down and not bear the weight. So, Alex was consolidating his damaged foundation before jumping to epic rank now. By stepping up to epic rank now he can damage his foundation again and deal separable damage. With the help of the system, he doesn't need to rush unless necessary as he uses stat points to increase his strength. Catherine, who was struggling to keep up with the training regimen set by Alex, suddenly felt weakness spreading throughout her body and felt her vision becoming blurry. Alex didn't show her a shred of mercy when it came to training her and treated her harshly as if she was a stranger. She stood up unsteadily and was about to fall, but she felt a shoulder supporting her while a hand wrapped around her waist to prevent her from falling, acting as support. She gripped tightly as she felt her throat go dry while her heart was beating fast due to the training. "Can't I skip training?" Catherine complained with a dissatisfied expression. "Do you want to get kidnapped again and rot in jail?" Catherine heard a rough and raspy voice and her body started to tremble for a moment. She looked up and saw that Alex's eyes were filled with disappointment. She could sense that Alex was very disappointed in her when it came to training, as she never gave her best. Although Alex listens to all of her scolding and nods like an obedient child, when it comes to training, he turns into a demon without any shred of mercy or compassion. "Is it necessary for me to become stronger? You also know that I don't have much potential unlike others, so instead of wasting my time here, can't I dedicate it somewhere else where I can be useful?" Catherine muttered in a nervous tone. Alex sighed with a nasty look and let go of Catherine, who looked at Alex with a dazed expression. Alex turned his back and started walking away, leaving Catherine with a bewildered expression. "Alex!" Catherine was taken aback for a moment and called out Alex's name. She ran after him as she was about to catch up to Alex. In a span of a second, a sword appeared before her that was pointed at her head. And it wasn't a wooden sword but a real one. "Arg!" She screamed in panic and jumped back in fear and fell back to the ground as her legs gave way as she closed her eyes in fear. But as she felt that nothing happened after that, she raised her chin to see the sword stop before her neck as Alex looked at her like a beast that wanted to kill her. Her face turned pale when she saw Alex's expression and thought that Alex might have been so angry at her that he wanted to throw her out. Seeing the fear and despair in Catherine's eyes, Alex shook her head and withdrew her sword. Her violent and angry expression turned calm again, surprising Catherine. "Catherine, I understand your way of thinking. Instead of becoming stronger, you want to raise strong people who will stay by your side and protect you." Alex understood Catherine's line of thoughts. It was quite similar to the weak protagonist, who uses all sorts of tricks to gather talented people near him who always protect him, but that may be true only for fantasy. "I know you're thinking that the kidnapping happened because you're careless and your guards and others were on the weaker side, and if you cultivate people to a higher level you can prevent such an accident from happening again. That mindset of yours is wrong. In this world there's no such thing as absolute loyalty. Even if you cultivate people and treat them with the utmost care and respect, there are bound to be some wolves and hyenas in the group that will bare their fangs as soon as they see the opportunity." Chapter 186, Unconditional Trust. "Hey," Catherine squealed as she pondered Alex's words for a moment. "What do you mean by that? Besides, wouldn't you be there to oversee things?" Catherine said as she waited for Alex's response. She doesn't know why, but every time she spends time with Alex she has this unconditional faith that he will keep her safe and protect her from all troubles by giving his all. She didn't know why she felt this way, nor did she know the basis of such trust, but it was a feeling that appeared today. Alex broke into the prison, destroying everything in his path until Emiden and rescued her. Alex's appearance, full of blood and chivalry, was an unforgettable memory for her. Alex was momentarily speechless after listening to Catherine. He could feel the unwavering trust Catherine had in him, which amazed him greatly. He didn't know how she had developed such trust in him when up until now neither of them had opened up to each other, unlike Raya and Christina. Moreover, Alex, unlike the other two, hadn't made any advances towards Catherine, nor had he seriously tried to melt her heart. In truth, he was trying to keep some distance from her, for now, to sort out his feelings. The first thing he wanted to know was whether Catherine was Ava's reincarnation or not, which was very important not only to him but to Catherine as well. If he loved her just because she was his Ava from his previous life, and then came to know that although she had the same facial features as Ava, she wasn't Ava and it was all just a coincidence, then wouldn't it be wrong for her? On top of that, he also doesn't want to love to heal his heart by thinking of her as a substitute for Ava. But now, thinking about all this, Alex chuckled with a small laugh. "It doesn't matter if you're Ava or not. The only thing I needed to do now was fall in love with you and accept your true identity, Catherine Wissman," Alex muttered to himself with a smile that puzzled Catherine, who wondered if she had asked some stupid question. Alex walked over to Catherine, who was sitting on the floor with her hair disheveled and her face dirty, which added some freshness to her, making her look cuter. Alex knelt on one of her legs and took the tip of Catherine's hair and began to caress it. "Catalina, your words made my heart race, and I'm so glad to know that you trust your useless husband so much." Hearing those words overloaded me with sweetness, Alex said with a big smile on her face. "Isn't that what I meant? Catherine spoke with a nervous expression, and Alex could notice her reddened ears as Alex caressed her hair. Seeing that she didn't reject the intimate gesture, Alex felt that he had made the right move. But Catherine, I won't always be with you, neither will other wives. In case of a great war, when we all have to head to the front and you stay behind, what will happen when someone stabs you in the back at that time? And let alone others, what will happen if your Uncle Lampard stabs you in the back? Alex said with a solemn expression. No, he would never do that, Catherine said with a resolute look. There's no doubt about it. He would never betray even if it cost him his life. But what if the cost is not his life, but the life of his son or his family? Huh? That? Catherine's words choked in her throat when she heard Alex think and was unable to refute the statements. You can't blame them in this kind of situation. Instead, you should blame yourself for being weak and for the fact that the groomers tried to use other families to harm you. One must believe in themselves more before believing in others. I'm not saying that you have to reach the rank of overlord, nor am I saying that you should march on the battlefield, but you must be strong enough to protect yourself in any strange situation, and you can't make an excuse that you have no potential. Hard work and potential go hand in hand. It's like multiplication. If your potential is low, you will have to work harder to get the same value. Also, out of all my wives, you are the one with the title of queen and will be by my side walking hand in hand. Wouldn't it look bad for your husband if he felt that you are a weakling? Catherine nodded after listening to Alex's long speech. She knew that she was too short-sighted and became arrogant to think that everything can be solved if you are wise enough. But the incident of her kidnapping, where she was kidnapped right under the noses of a huge army, proved that everything is useless in the face of superior force. I will work hard and make sure that I don't let you down, Catherine spoke with her eyes burning with passion. My good girl, blah. Who is your good girl? Catherine said in an irritated tone. By the way, Catherine, do you know a guy named George? Alex asked with a curious expression. George. Let me think for a moment, Catherine muttered as she pondered for a while. Alex's heart started to pound when he saw Catherine's wrinkled eyebrows. Does she remember? I have a very good memory, but still, I can't remember that name. Is this guy from right or does he work for me? Catherine asked. Alex slapped his forehead upon hearing her question and wondered why he was thinking so hard if he didn't know the name or was trying to remember the name he didn't know but felt familiar with. No, I heard that guy's a good artist when I passed by on the street. You quickly resumed training. You still have 30 laps ahead of you. What? Catherine shouted. Can't I do it tomorrow? I promise I'll take things seriously, so don't overdo it today. No, Alex shouted and didn't melt even though Catherine's pleas attacked his heart. And in this way, Catherine walked the path to hell prepared by Alex. Chapter 187, Alice's Departure. At the time of Alex's visit to Zenith, the core of Kinley was about to approach and everyone was happily preparing for King Alex's ascension. All the people were working hard to improve the entire city by creating a city full of splendor. The military authority headed by Mordek and Prime Minister Bassi was incredibly busy dealing with the upcoming military and political reform, leaving nothing undone and doing their best to integrate the three kingdoms into one without causing further chaos. The people of Amidon, who had been traumatized by Angus tyranny, were quite happy with the new reforms, but that didn't mean there weren't problems. Without the shadow of larger tyrants, smaller ones tried to raise their heads by trying to usurp the current situation. Thieves, bandits, black market traders, and drug dealers who were previously in hiding began to take over the portion of the market that delimits their area. But those who tried to raise their heads were brutally crushed under the jaws of the lion, who demonstrated what tyranny was. Alex personally took the matter of public safety into his hands and tried to eradicate all evil in society with his hands. He knew better than anyone that these people are like a cockroach that persists even if its head is cut off. Contrary to frustration, Alex was rather happy to see many specimens eager to be displayed in the shop window and who will soon use it to set an example. Alex had a pole of shame placed in each named city and hung the people who had committed serious crimes naked and asked the people to enjoy the spectacle by showering these people with their love by throwing eggs, dirt, shoes and many other things at them. The citizens who had suffered because of these people took out all the accumulated stress. There were even cases when the criminal died due to excessive beating. This treatment was enough to make the evildoers cower and hide in the shadows while washing their hands of the crime. Alex promoted the construction of orphanages and nursing homes for the elderly. Orphaned children receive basic education, while people in nursing homes can engage in learning some craft and spend their time in some useful recreational activity. Crime and poverty rates began to decrease and the value of Nevin began to rise. Everyone tried hard to prepare for Alex's ceremony to show their gratitude. Alex's performance had completely won the hearts of the people, and they were more willing to accept the rule of a man who knows how to repay kindness with kindness and blood with blood. The rich contributed money and the strong contributed labor, while many merchants who entered Nevin tried to help by increasing trade and prosperity. At the same time, many neighboring countries sent their delegations to Nevin wanting to maintain friendly relations and discuss politics. Even Alex was surprised by the sudden visit of the envoys from the other kingdom. Although Nevin was ascending rapidly, it was only the first step, and even after all the reform, Nevin would still be between level 4 and level 5. There is still a long way to go, as the main backbone of a kingdom is its military strength, and it cannot be built in 2 or 3 months, as quality and quantity still matter in this aspect. With the addition of Amidon and the pouring in of resources while deducting one's own loss in the war, Nevin had an army of 20,000 standing, leaving behind the recruits who were still undergoing military selection. So he was confused why all these people rushed down here even though their kingdom level was higher than Nevin. Alex only later learned that this was a result of an article published in a popular Kinley magazine that shook up the entire Kinley again, and where he was greatly highlighted. After 19 years of sleep, the sleeping lion finally woke up from its slumber. Amidon, who tried to touch its tail, finally understood the meaning of being caught in a lion's jaw. So, who will be the next prey of the king of predators? Will he regain his title and lost glory, or will he fall asleep again? Only God knows what will happen next. Alex couldn't help but curse all day at the 14 generations of that imbecile writer who wrote such fiery things that might have provoked many. It can be seen that that guy was referring to the battle with the princes and tried to liven things up. The only good point of that article was that he was called the King of the Beast. Even in his world filled with dragons and other mythical creatures, the lion is still considered the king of beasts. The lion is not as strong as the others, nor is it as fast as the others, nor is it the largest creature in the world. Whether in his previous world or this one, the only trait that the lion aspires to is to be fearless. Even when fighting an opponent much stronger than him, he will give it his all and die with pride. To be a king, one doesn't need to be the strongest, but rather a character filled with a bit of everything from kindness to chivalry and decisiveness in just the right measure, and Alex, whose horoscope was Leo in his previous life, can't help but feel a little proud of it. This was also one of the reasons for taking Leo in after seeing him in such a pathetic state. Outside the city gate, Alex stood with a sad expression as he held Alice's hands. "Can't you stay a few more days? We'll be moving out in 4 days, Alex muttered. "Sorry, big brother, I have to leave before you." "Don't worry, we'll see each other soon," Alice said as she gently hugged him. Alice had already greeted her sister-in-law before bidding farewell. With a reluctant expression, she got into the carriage and started walking forward while waving at Alex with a cheerful expression. Alex held back a few tears in a sad manner as she watched her adorable sister leave. Alicia, who was sitting inside the carriage, looked out as her lips curved upwards with a mischievous smile. "Big brother, you are too evil," she laughed. Chapter 188, Schemes and Conspiracies. In a dark underground room, a group of people were sitting at a round table as they discussed their upcoming plans with a solemn expression. Princess Alice left Nevin early, and the king of Nevin's forces will be moving to Zenith through Bride in a few days, a man reported as he informed everyone about all the recent events. The discovery gives everyone a sense of urgency and makes them feel like they need to think of some measures. What is Princess Alice doing in front of Nevin? She seemed to have a favorable impression of the king and also treat him well despite being an outcast. It's quite surprising, isn't it? Is it true, or is it just a fabricated rumor? What if she plans to use him to strengthen her forces? You know that not only the prince but the princess is also interested in the throne. The first princess is too ambitious. She wants to become the empress and wishes to bring about a social revolution where the woman leads the man. A series of exchanges began as everyone started adding their opinion, forgetting the exact reason why they had gathered here in the first place. "Sir, please do not stray off topic. You are neglecting the reason why we are all gathered here." Everyone's chatter came to an abrupt stop, and they turned their heads to see the man wearing a crow mask covering the top half of his face. "I'm sorry, leader." Everyone lowered their heads and waited for him to speak. The crow-masked man slowly tapped the table as he looked around at everyone in silence. Dead silence took over everyone as all noises except the tap sound disappeared. The atmosphere became quite tense as he was deep in thought. We thought of abandoning the plan due to Princess Alice's presence earlier because if we were caught the situation would be very dangerous for us, but the superior contacted me and ordered me to go ahead with the plan but make sure that Princess Alice was not harmed. Hey, what? Everyone gasped in shock at his words. Leader, it's the same as committing suicide. What kind of unreasonable order is this? If we do this, we will be exterminated. Loud murmurs began to be heard throughout the place as everyone gave their opinion. Silence, the masked man shouted, restoring peace and calming them down. The superior is not an idiot. He knows the consequences and how to avoid them. With this he wanted to blame Nevin for failing to protect Princess Alice and trying to cut off King Nevin's wings before he spread them. And if you wanted to know if the superior has the power to cover you, then you should know that he had enough power to cover all of Kingly. His status is quite extraordinary, the masked crow explained. He nodded in approval when he saw a man raise his head. Leader, we know that we are scapegoats for the superiors and we have to follow their orders even if we don't know their true identity, but can we know the real reason for doing this? I mean, is it necessary to mess with the King of Nevin? Why do we have to put a foot in his way? He is doing what he has to do and does not seem to have any greed for more power, authority, or even the throne of the empire. Even if we win, we are going to suffer, a man said with a dissatisfied expression as he found the whole situation to be quite absurd. After all, he couldn't find any justifiable reason to bother Nevin, who is his neighbor. Good question. The raven-masked man smiled a little and steepled his fingers as he looked at the man. Have you ever heard of a lion giving birth to a wolf? No. In this case, have you heard of any beast or monster giving birth to another species? Leader, why are you asking me this? Because a lion cub will always be a lion cub. Even if it is handicapped and mentally ill, it will still be a lion until the end. Yes, it would be another case if it had mental health issues, but now that the lion has become a true predator, wouldn't it be better to kill it before the cub matures? But, the man tried to say something but was stopped by the leader who continued with his explanation. I know that the King of Nevin doesn't seem to have any desire to shed blood on the throne externally and perhaps internally as well, but, what if he is forced to fight in the battle of succession? What if he is forced to take up the sword to prevent his hut from being cut off and protect his loved ones? Then do you think this beast would stay hidden for others to attack? He spoke with a small sinister smile that sent a chill down one's spine. There have been several cases where kings behead their relatives, their brothers because they don't like them, and if a prince ascends who doesn't like the King of Nevin and decides to eliminate him, but that's only one of the real reasons, isn't it? A man wearing a demon-like mask said. Good, the real reason is that King of Nevin is carrying with him 5 precious trophies that the world wants to snatch away from him, he said with a bitter smile as he recalled her extraordinary appearance. Princess Yvonne and Saint Athena were being dressed up by men from all over the world and now Christina and Catherine, whose beauty rivals them, have also appeared and their maid Rydia, hidden under the veil, is also a beauty that defies heaven. Since ancient times, have there been any cases where blood has not been divided for beauties? Saint Athena was protected by the church and Princess Yvonne also had great backing, but Lady Christina and Lady Catherine do not have any strong background. If the emperor had not tied them to that idiot of a king, these flowers would have already been picked by others. Since King of Nevin is going to the capital with such beautiful flowers, several flower pickers will soon appear, there will soon be a bloodbath and whoever emerges victorious will taste the fruit of heaven. So, are we going to attack? Yes, the raven-masked man nodded and looked at the demon-masked man. The demons take those specimens and crush Nevin's forces and can harm the King of Nevin, but not his wives. The higher-ups wanted him to be the laughingstock of all of Kinley when he came to Zenith, a cat in lion's skin who can't even protect his daughters. What a fitting headline for the next issue. Alex sat on the throne as he listened to the short speech given by Bessie. This is the list of messengers of all those who came to congratulate King Alex. On both sides, there were many chairs on which the leaders of Nevin who were currently meeting with King Alex were sitting. These officials and ministers were carefully selected by Alex, seeing their diplomatic talent and after conducting a background check. This was an expanded meeting of upper levels. Besides the military officials, there was the nobility of Ryde and Amidon along with many respected people. Keezer Kingdom, King Brad, Lark Kingdom, King Hayes. Bassie said about the names of 16 kingdoms in one go. They all offered some tribute brought by the messenger. Here is the list. Alex took care of the 2 lists and rubbed his forehead seeing such a long list. Originally, Catherine would have attended the meeting, but due to help and successive training, She was unable to lift her fingers. She still wanted to oversee things and fought with Alex until he tied her up and locked her in the room, asking her to get some rest. "Bassie, please take everything away. We should not refuse other gifts. Gifts are made to be accepted, but your majesty, our relationship with Kingdom Brook isn't good. I think they have ill intentions by sending the gift," Mordek complained. "Let them be, just accept the gift. Why should we shed unnecessary blood when they aren't even our enemies?" Alex said. "By the way, did you find that jerk from the kingdom helping Amidon secretly?" "Yes, it's the beginning of Eden. It's a level 2 kingdom working to gain recognition for level 1, Bassie replied. "By the way, I see what their king's level is. The king seemed to be at a legendary realm and is 29 years old, Bassie replied and further asked, "Why did you want to know his level?" "It's just to satisfy my curiosity," Alex muttered as his eyes flashed with killing intent. Hearing Alex's words, everyone present had a similar thought. "Your curiosity is the beginning of your misfortune, Your Majesty. Since you're visiting Zenith, I think we should also prepare some gifts for the nobles of Zenith. It will also make a good impression and improve your relationship with them." "Please do not waste this opportunity," Nevin's Minister of Culture murmured. "Yes, Your Majesty. Forging good relations with them will also solidify your position in the future, and who knows, you may also be able to regain your lost honor." Alex listened to all their advice and looked around, raising his hand to shut them up. "You all seem to have the wrong ideas. My honor does not lie in being accepted as the Emperor's son. I do not care about being a member of the royal family. Do you want me to lick him and beg him to accept me back even if he disowns me? I do not need such pity. The main reason I accepted the proposal was that I wanted to meet my other 2 wives as quickly as possible. Instead of focusing on all this, you should invest your time in thinking about the well-being of Nevin and its people. We need to work hard to make Nevin an enemy to fight." Chapter 189, Steel Square. In the throne room, everyone shook their heads and gave an awkward smile. Many people in the world wanted to ascend the throne by doing everything they could to crush the opposition by hook or by crook, and once they sat on the throne, many of them held on tightly to their power for fear of sharing a bit of their authority with others and killed anyone who tried to oppose them. However, Alex was the complete opposite and ran away from power and authority like a snake. The king's only interest now was to make the people self-sufficient and stronger to avoid any calamity that might befall Nevin. While kings can salivate and turn into dogs to please the nobles of Kinley when the opportunity comes, and would even bow down for a chance to be crowned in the capital of Kinley, the king, instead of rushing to obtain the official coronation, was thinking of how to woo his wife. But who could help the minister inside the room to get out of such situations and comment on them? Only if one has a heart of stone can one oppose the king when he takes his stand. Bassie shook his head with a wry smile. "I will report the final details to His Majesty for a decision later. You don't have to report me. You can do whatever you want. I trust you completely. If anything goes wrong, you will offer your head yourself, right?" Alex flashed an insidious smile that mortified Bassie, who could do nothing but nod obediently. After the discussion and follow-up plans were over, Bassie informed Alex about what was happening. Behind the castle was a small forest at the foot of the hill that had been transformed into Steel Square. The place had been classified as a forbidden zone where not even high-level officials or ministers could set foot. Except for Alex, only his wives along with Bassie and Mordek could enter this place. It was completely locked from the outside. Of course, there didn't seem to be anything strange about the outside appearance, while a huge sign with the name of Nevin Prison was hanging up. There were a small number of guards who seemed to be lounging around yawning with a bored look, but inside there were currently 100 highly trained disciple guards who were following a strange pattern as they patrolled the entire place so that not even a bird could go unnoticed. Alex smoothly entered the forbidden ground without resistance and went straight to the underground place. The underground ground had been dug out by the future legendary miner himself, after which a cave with a stone wall had been created. Compared to the quiet outside, the inside was more active, where 100 elites chosen by Alex himself were being trained following his orders on the right side. Ian, the first son of Count Hamilton, was also training there and already had the rank of master. Ian, who was brandishing his sword, noticed Alex's presence and bowed his head. The others bowed as well, and Alex gently nodded and waved his hand, asking them to carry out what they were doing. They were being trained to become knights under the guidance of Mordek, who was quite busy supervising the military academy and them. Soon, Count Hamilton and Lampard would take over the guidance of the recruits at the military academy, and Mordek would devote himself entirely to raising them in secret. On the left wing, another 100 individuals were being brutally trained as they had seen the darkness of society. Alex, in his crusade to wipe out the evildoers, found many weirdos with great potential. Each of them could become an asset to Nevin in the future. So, instead of killing them, Alex spared them by planting a slave mark, but that didn't mean that Alex had already forgiven them. Those who have killed innocent people have to save 10 times more people in the future if they want to get rid of the mark of the slave. Unlike other slave marks that can be broken if the slave becomes stronger than the master, the slave mark used by Alex, once ingrained, can only be removed by him. Tash. 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 Alex hears the heart-wrenching screams of the people as he passes by the hallway. Alex stared at their training where they were being beaten with whips while others fought each other with royal daggers in hand. All of these elites, after finishing their training, would be under the command of the Queen of Shadows. Her words would be law to them and she would be their queen. Alex stood there for a brief moment overseeing the training. Your Majesty. Alex saw a familiar place and knelt down before Alex. Ah, Kadger, I'm glad to see you. Looks like you've been doing well. Yes, Your Majesty. With your grace, I was finally able to regain my strength and I'm preparing to ascend to the epic rank soon. Maybe when you come back you'll see a lot of epic ranks and a lot of master ranks, Kadger said in a humble tone. You're doing well, Kadger. Your time to shine will come soon. How is Nina? Alex asked over Kadger's handcuffs. Nina is fine thanks to your grace. Okay, do your job. Alex chatted for a few moments about his training and left. As Alex went deeper into the stone labyrinth, the interior became a massive stone hall resembling a skyscraper, with a deep and wide corridor where a dozen furnaces had been set up. Here the best blacksmiths of Nevin and Wright worked along with their apprentices, and with the help of the soldiers, they sent huge pieces of solid iron to build fences. On the other side of the huge workshop, there was a huge carriage made of steel and wood where various golden engravings were made, showing off the artistic design. But the interesting thing was that the golden engravings were not for decoration. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelist. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 190, I Want to Test It. Alex stared at the array of small metal gears, screws, and wheels that were placed inside the carriage whose blueprint had been drawn by him. Alex noticed that the tools and equipment used by the blacksmiths were quite old-fashioned, so he had to get some modern tools to help them speed up their work. And this car was one of those that Alex put sincere effort into, which is also part of an experiment. It was personally designed by him just like the outline of the city. It flaunts an artistic style along with a futuristic design. If there are situations where a wheel breaks, it can even drive on 3 wheels. Alex used all of his magical and scientific knowledge to achieve this because it was a matter of his and his wife's safety. My previous live engineering studies were not in vain, King Alex, Your Majesty, Your Highness. Seeing Alex's arrival, all the soldiers and blacksmiths gathered around him. They all bowed and saluted him. Alex smiled at the sight of the familiar faces as he had been working with them recently and seemed to remember each of them, and they had all become quite close to him. They were all very touched to see Alex remembering them and treating them with respect. Among all the blacksmiths, the best and most respected was the middle-aged man named Mueller. His personality was rather dull but he was quite loyal and kind. He had a very warm heart even though he seemed cold on the outside. Mueller, is the carriage ready? Yes, Your Majesty. The general construction is already finished and we should all get it ready when it is ready to be drawn, Mueller replied in a respectful tone. Excellent, then take it out. I want to try it out. As soon as Alex spoke, everyone surrounding him and chatting happily stopped abruptly and a heavy silence prevailed throughout the area. Mueller almost tripped over his back, but shook his head and asked, Perhaps Your Majesty would like to take a test drive, wouldn't you? No, I want to check my durability, Alex said, sticking a pin into their heads. Mueller looked at his colleagues with dead eyes and asked them to take it out for a destruction experiment. As the carriage was taken out, the blacksmiths shed a few tears while many even burned incense for the carriage, which they treated like their own children. Alex stared at the massive 2-story carriages and unsheathed his sword, causing many to startle. Alex's sword began to glow as a crimson aura began to cover it entirely. On the other side, Bassie and Mordek were watching the whole scenery as sweat poured down their bodies like a torrent. Bassi even bit his nails in tension and looked at Mordek and said, "We're already 3 days late because of your majesty. If the carriage is cut into 2 halves, what are we going to do? We've spent a lot of money on it, and if we sell it we can easily get a huge sum. Mordek, please say something." Try to persuade him to stop doing this kind of thing. Mordek looked at Bassi with a dumbfounded expression and blinked a few times. Gulping, he shouted, "Your Majesty, what?" Mordek's entire body shuddered as he heard Alex's ice-cold voice that instantly froze him. Trying to put on a sincere smile, he gave a thumbs up and muttered, "Your Majesty. Best of luck." "Ah, thank you." Alex chuckled and looked back at the carriage, leaving Bassi and the others with their mouths agape. "What the hell are you saying?" Bassi almost screamed with a panicked expression as Mordek, instead of stopping him, wished him luck. But his voice fell short as Alex raised his sword and slashed it towards the carriage. Boo-hoo-hoo. A loud bang occurred, lighting up the entire underground cave, causing the upper stone structure to rumble, shaking the entire place as if a small earthquake had occurred. The ordinary soldiers were pushed back a few steps due to the shockwave generated by the explosion. "No! My baby!" Mueller screamed and sobbed as he watched his precious item being brutally destroyed without leaving a single ash behind. The other blacksmiths tried to hold him down and restrain him to prevent him from jumping into the fire pit. "Why? Why, Your Majesty? Why would such a benevolent king like you commit such an act and destroy works of art?" Mueller and others sobbed, shocking Alex. Alex raised his eyebrow and gave them a strange look. "Have these people gone senile from being here for months? What kind of nonsense is this?" Alex muttered. Seeing them acting as if someone had died, Alex wanted to say, "Brother, you're exaggerating a bit." Unable to bear it any longer, Alex shouted, "Shut up and look over there." Everyone stopped their wild behavior and stared at the spot where the fire slowly died down and the smoke dissipated, leaving behind the carriage without a single scratch. A golden barrier covered the entire barrier, protecting it from damage. "Wow!" They gulped in surprise at the sight. Alex looked at them with a cold gaze, wanting to ask what was going on earlier, but Mueller and the others simply averted their gaze as they talked amongst themselves. "Have you fixed the lever? Go and remove the molten iron. Hey, control the temperature," they shouted with an embarrassed expression and began to disappear. "Now, did you all see the power of the rune?" Alex asked Bassi and Mordek. Both of them nodded simultaneously. "It can confront the attack of the transcendent rank and last for a while against the legendary rank, Your Majesty. The previous modification on the walls and bricks with steel plates that you have been making recently are all these." "Yes," Alex nodded with a smile. "Our experiment was finally successful. They all have runes, although they can only perform epic rank attacks. Once we have enough manpower and talented mages, we will launch an impenetrable defense." Chapter 191, The Birth of Leonhardt. The day to set out for Zenith had finally arrived. Since the coronation would be held in Zenith, there wouldn't be any coronation ceremony in Nevin for the people to celebrate, so Alex decided to celebrate the day he set out. Today was going to be a festive day where all the citizens would have a good time. Curse. 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 The gigantic bronze bell at the castle gates suddenly rang and spread like a shockwave. The sound of the great bell pierced the peace between heaven and earth, instantly resonating throughout the city. As it rang, a sudden round of excitement began to spread throughout the city, frightening the group of birds and animals in the city. In a distant location behind the castle, the great golden lion that was sleeping peacefully suddenly narrowed its eyes, its ears suddenly erected, and light burst forth from its eyes. Besides her, 3 beautiful maidens were standing with an indifferent expression and suddenly had a pleasant look as soon as the noise resounded. Christina raised her hand and following her signal the armed knights and armed infantry began to move. With Leo standing at the front, over 100 roaring beasts and horses suddenly lined up in a neat formation. They began to gallop forward, shaking the earth, and like a wave of the sea they began their march. On that day, several outsiders gathered with different motives, and upon seeing the scene, they simultaneously revealed expressions of astonishment. The bell rang, marking the beginning of the next auspicious period. Ring, 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 ring. Everyone heard the sound of light footsteps hitting the ground, rhythmically shaking the entire city. Before the castle gates appeared hundreds of knights in silver armor led by many knights in golden armor, whose armors shone under the rays of the sun. The streets of the city, filled with noise, suddenly fell silent, and all the citizens had already come out of their houses and lined up on the streets to witness the event and looked in the direction of the palace, where a huge platform was carved high up from the ground. Now everyone was completely awed by the exploits of their kings. A large number of infantry and cavalry lined up before the palace, flaunting their strength. Each of them gave off a fierce aura, and their eyes were filled with a coldness that can make many tremble in fear. Alex, who was on the wooden platform, stopped ringing the bell. Leo, followed by Rydia, Catherine and Christina, walked up to the platforms and stood behind his back. A huge projection erupted above the castle, making it visible throughout the city, and his voice, amplified by mono devices, began to ring loudly. Citizens of Nevin, we have seen the fall, we have seen the poverty, we have seen the darkness. Our state once stood low and allowed others to trample us. Each of us has gone through a phase in our lives where we simply stood by while waiting for a better future that only God knows when it will come. It is not just you, but also me and my wives who have been pressured by the fate that wanted us to bow down to it. But no, we have already been living like flies that can be swatted away by others. So does it matter if we die trying to spread our wings and fly to the sky? Our moment of glory is now. From today onwards, I am Alex, who had been disowned by the Kinley royal family. I will spread my wings and encourage you all to do the same. I, who used to be known as Alex von Stan, whose surname Stan was taken from me, shall be known as Alex von Leonhardt, and the joint kingdom of Nevin, right? And Amidon shall from today on be known as the kingdom of Leonhardt. My citizens are all lions among lions who fought against the erosion of time. So, everyone, let us do our best and create the history of a wonderful kingdom whose history will be recorded in words of gold. So raise your head so that you do not miss this moment as I raise the flag of our kingdom. Alex roared as he raised a crimson-colored flag on which was engraved the symbol of a golden lion face with two canines. Following the raising of the flag, Leo stepped forward and sucked in air through his nose, opening his jaw wide and letting out a terrifying roar that shook the entire city. The terrifying breath emanating from Leo was transmitted throughout the city, causing the hairs on the listener's skin to stand up due to excitement. The flag fluttered in the wind like a crimson dragon, etching a deep sense of patriotism into the hearts of the people. The people watched the scene with tears in their eyes as they loudly cheered for their king and kingdom. Today was a very important day not only for the king but for them as well. Only a stone-hearted person would feel nothing in such a situation. Alex gazed at the marvelous scene as he looked at his army. Ian, Ben, and Antoine had finally reached the rank of master while Max was in the middle of the disciple rank due to his late awakening. Rydia had finally entered Transcendent, while Catherine's harsh training had finally paid off, allowing her to enter the disciple rank. Although Christina had not separated, she had already rebuilt a lost foundation and her wound had been completely healed. Their journey had been delayed a little but the results had been satisfactory. The stage was set, the plot was drawn, and the characters were defined. The only thing left now was for him to act and crush anyone who had ill intentions towards him and his wives. My coronation ceremony is just around the corner. I know everyone is looking forward to it. Alex smiled slightly as his majestic voice filtered into everyone's ears. So, my citizens, when I return in glory from Zenith, please wait for me, pass on my order. Send out the army. Our destination is the capital of the Empire, Zenith. Chapter 192, Night Assault. It was a journey that would take 8 days to reach the capital, unless there were any useless problems. After leaving their kingdom, that night Leonhardt's expedition army camped at a lake beside the huge and dense forest within the territory of the Bright Kingdom. It was a pleasant night, under the bright rays of the full moon, with gentle winds caressing the body. The silence of the night was broken from time to time by the rustling of leaves. But the deathly silence did not last. Around the place where the expedition army was resting, a small squeaking noise began to echo softly, like the buzzing emitted by nocturnal insects. The trees and bushes began to emit creaking noises and countless red eyes flashed under the darkness of the night and appeared whose gazes seemed to be directed at the expedition army. Hundreds of red eyes appeared and soon various creatures appeared. A horde of wolves that seemed capable of standing on two legs and looked like werewolves appeared. They growled ferociously and without wasting any more time they rushed towards the camp. The soldiers surrounding the place were suddenly awakened by the sudden noise and screamed in panic as their bodies trembled. Some even tried to flee, throwing away their weapons in fear. Seeing their cowardly act fueled the instincts of this beast, and it followed the attacks of the real enemy. Humans with long nails and sharp canines who seemed to have lost all reason. Their eyes glowed darkly and they screamed like a ferocious beast leaping towards the camp. In front of them was a man wearing a demon-shaped mask who was standing on the cliff. There was a mocking smile beneath his mask as he watched the soldiers flee in fear. Those soldiers are just for show. They can't even raise their weapons out of fear, he snorted. As he laughed, he thought that they were just worrying in vain. Except for the King of Nevin and a few others, they were all useless. But the smile on his face didn't last long, leaving behind a confused look. The soldiers patrolling around jumped back and hid behind the camp, allowing the beast to reach the carved wooden fences. The wolves that were about to jump over the fences were suddenly hit by a golden light that sent them flying. Roar! A lion appeared before the pack of wolves whose fur shone like gold in the night. He snorted towards the pack of wolves with a mocking smile. Roar! Roar! Hand over your lives to this lion lord, grrrr, how wwwll. The wolves didn't seem to heed his warning and rushed towards him. Leo jumped up and swung out a paw. Bang! The wolf was instantly crushed by Leo's paw. Leo took a step back and pounced on the pack of wolves, tearing each and every one of them apart. The scene looks quite bloody and horrifying as Leo tears the pack of wolves apart along with the internal organs, which turned into mincemeat and fall to the ground along with a trickle of blood. The soldiers who saw this scene gulped as they saw the lion that always used to act like a cat as it lay in Riai's embrace. It looked so innocent and cute, as if it only ate vegetables and drank milk, but seeing it now feasting on enemy blood, it surely looked like the king of beasts. Leo, busy with his slaughter, suddenly gave a start and his long ears stood up when he heard some rapid footsteps and turned around to see some strange humans rushing towards him. Leo raised his eyebrows as he saw the group of ugly and distorted human-like faces carelessly carrying him and dragged his paw towards the ground, taking a stance. Taking a deep and heavy breath that even inflated his stomach, his eyes flashed for a moment and his body emitted a golden light as he circulated his mana and opened his jaw, giving a brutal and bloody roar that could even shake a human soul in fear. Roar! Leo let out a terrifying roar that made almost everyone's ears start to bleed. The ground beneath Leo's feet began to crack and spread forward, creating a rift in the ground and sweeping away all the dust and debris. The roar came out like a sound wave that blew away everyone who came into contact with it. The human creatures that rushed towards Leo were thrown far away, and anyone who reached a 50-meter radius around Leo began to bleed from their ears as his terrifying roar burst everyone's eardrums. The ferocious breath crushed all enemies. The trees shook and the ground rumbled for a few seconds after Leo finished the roar, and everything returned to peace. Leo stared at the devastation as he heard the sound of loud applause behind him. Well done, Leo. You did a wonderful job. Seeing your strength, I am proud. Leo, I have not raised you in vain. Alex, who came out of the tent, gave Leo a thumbs up in praise. Leo simply waved his hand with a nervous expression, giving a cute roar. You're embarrassing me. Alex was enjoying Leo's bloody slaughter and suddenly screamed when he felt two soft hands slapping his waist. Why was that? Alex asked with a surprised expression as both Riai and Catherine pinched him with all their might, turning his skin dark blue. Because of your influence, our cute Leo has been spoiled. He's been affected by you, Riai and Catherine muttered at the same time. Alex's lips twitched at the words of his two wives and he began to sweat profusely. After reaching the rank of master, Leo was able to change his body shape into a small cut cat whose cuteness was truly otherworldly. It seems my position is in jeopardy, damn it, Leo. This daddy will soon have a man-to-man conversation with you. Leo, come back, Alex ordered. After all, who knows what will happen next? Leo roared and ran back to the camp, and his size changed to that of a small cat and he jumped into Riai's embrace and curled up like a small cat while Catherine and Riai gently petted him. Chapter 193, Night Assault 2. Alex turned his head and stared at the edge of the cliff. His red eyes flickered with a reddish glow that emitted killing intent. The man wearing the demon mask was suddenly startled by Alex's gaze that seemed to pierce through him. But the next moment, he received a surprise beyond his wildest dream when he heard Alex's voice. Demonsis, I've been waiting for you. His eyeball widened with a horrified look when he heard Alex's words that froze his entire body. How did you know my name? He muttered with a panicked expression. Alex's lips curved upwards in a mocking smile as he muttered, it's because you'll be an important asset to me in the future. The man had no way of knowing that Alex used an eye of truth to know his name, so he thought someone had leaked his name. Alex turned his gaze and shouted, it's time to fight back. As soon as Alex's voice fell, the soldiers who were behaving like cowards seemed to be scared by just a simple shout. They suddenly took out their weapons and moved forward fearlessly. Ian, Ben, Antoine, Alex stopped in the middle of his speech as he saw Max's eyes filled with expectation. Except for Max, everyone leads the troop. Max's shoulders slumped as he saw others having the chance to lead the troops except for him, and Ben even gave him a mocking smile. Alex smiled bitterly as he saw his expression and tried to convince him, "Max, you are an important part of the army, only you can destroy everything. That's why I wanted you to wreak havoc by yourself. You are one of my best soldiers, my future star. A one-man army can unleash destruction." Max's dull eyes suddenly filled with a berserk fighting spirit and began to burn vigorously, and he let out an anguished roar and leapt straight into the battlefield. "Do shut up and bring me that bastard who wears a mask to hide his ugly face." Mordek nodded and disappeared from his spot. On the other hand, it was a one-sided massacre. Leonhardt's soldiers looked more like a beast than the real beast they had been fighting against. The monsters and humans who had lost their minds were frightened by their ferocious attack. One of the spearmen pierced the tip of the spear into the monster's stomach and, raising it, spun it around and smashed it into others. The defenders whose job it was to defend were insane, smashing their shields against the enemies and beating them into pulp mercilessly. The archers who were supposed to support from the rear charged forward and used the arrowheads to pierce the monster and dig holes in them. Antoine, even though he had the axe he could use as a harbinger of death, used his bare hands to tear the monsters into two halves. Of the entire group, Alex could only see Ian fighting gracefully like a trained and civilized knight. "Die, give me your head, let's cut off these pieces of meat." They chanted all kinds of heavenly battle cry chants. Catherine, who saw the scene, gulped in nervousness. Alex was simply embarrassed to see their crazy fighting style and asked in her heart the name of the bastard who influenced them like that. "Alex, how the hell did you train them?" The soldiers and knights marched with order and grace. "Why then do they fight like savages?" Catherine asked with a surprised expression. "Just wait for my lord to do something. You have to redefine the very meaning of savagery." Ria laughed. "Alex, did you notice anything?" Christina asked with a curious expression as she saw a large frown on Alex's face. Alex simply nodded as she heard Catherine's words. Alex looked around and activated his mana sensor to see that around 600 human monsters were rushing towards them. "Look at those humans and beasts here. They are not ordinary beasts, but are the result of some damn experiment. You see the black mana fumes appearing on them," Alex said in an angry tone. "I remember you saying that, but seeing them with one eye made his heart ache," Catherine muttered. "With a massive supply of humans from lower societies and other kingdoms, they will never run out of these slaves. During war, these kinds of tactics could prove quite fatal as the opposing forces would be tired before even fighting the actual battle," Alex muttered as he analyzed the situation. "So, they're going to attack us? We're going to hold an official coronation in Kinley by order of the Emperor. Isn't this a direct challenge to his authority?" Ria asked with a curious expression. "Who said they're going to declare war on us?" Catherine said with a cold expression. "They'll just harass us, cause us trouble, and try to shake our mental stability before they reach the zenith," Catherine muttered. Alex nodded at Catherine, analyzing that what she said was correct. The cat-and-mouse game had already begun. "Soldier, try to surround them and close off their escape route. Form a perimeter and tie them up there." Alex gave a series of orders and the soldiers who were fighting in disarray instantly organized themselves into formation. "Ria and Christina, protect Catherine. In the meantime, let me have some fun," Alex muttered in an apathetic voice as his eyes flashed with killing intent. Alex pulled out a massive sword from his back and covered it in mana, which began to screeching violently. With a large stomp, he leaps high into the sky. The dust and debris beneath him were blown away by the impact and hit his wives, causing them to scream at him at the same time. Alex gulped and swallowed as he heard his name called along with the glares burning a hole in his back. Of course one shouldn't mess with a lady's makeup. Alex shook his head to clear the unnecessary thoughts and used flight magic to soar into the sky and increase the momentum of his attack. Embers of flames engulfed his massive sword as he poured his mana into it voraciously. "This is enough," Alex said with a smile as he looked at the flocks of gathered prey. "Throw the barrier," Alex shouted as he raised the huge sword and threw it down with all his might. Boom! The greatsword was shot towards the ground and flew like a missile, breaking the sound barrier and heading straight towards the crowd of gathered prey. Chapter 194, Night Assault 3. Like a meteor descending from the sky, the enormous sword that had caught fire due to the friction of the atmosphere descended with a ferocious momentum. At the same time, a thin line of crimson fire seemed to unite the earth and the sky before a powerful explosion shook everything within a radius of a few kilometers. Boo! The ground shattered, trees were swept away, and the beasts, humans, and monsters that were at the center of the impact were instantly swept away and annihilated. From a small luminous point emerged an enormous sphere of deep red color. The degree of heat given off by it engulfed everything within a radius, and the heat alone caused the living being to roast until it was reduced to ashes. In just a few seconds a dome of fire reached about 100 meters in length, forming an enormous mushroom cloud that reduced everything to ashes. A few kilometers away a magical barrier was formed which shuddered from the shockwaves that collided with it, seemingly destroying it and forming cracks. The defenders forming the barrier were sweating profusely, thinking of the consequences if the barrier was broken. Alex's wives were quite far away and suddenly saw a huge oval-shaped dome that illuminated the entire place as if the sun had already risen. Catherine's jaw dropped wide as she saw the extent of the destruction caused by Alex's attack, and Alex's words of going there to have fun rang in her ears. "Maniac?" she screamed with a panicked expression. "Is that how he destroyed Amadon?" Catherine asked with a skeptical look. "No," Christina replied as she shook her head to calm Catherine's wildly beating heart, but then she heard Christina's words that struck her like thunder. "If Alex used that attack, the entire forest would be wiped out. That attack has the power to vaporize an entire city." Catherine closed her mouth with her trembling hands. She knew that Alex was strong, yes, incredibly strong, but that kind of firepower was truly beyond imagination and seemed to break the balance of power that existed. Even after witnessing it with her own eyes, she couldn't believe it. "Christina, how is it possible? Is it possible to launch an attack of such magnitude and devastation in Alex's range?" Catherine asked with a trembling voice. "Alex is a special case. Suppose a swordsman can cut a hill with his sword while a mage can blow up a mountain with his spells. Alex, who can do both, combines it." Alex's attack had a strange combination of magic and force manipulation. Firstly, Alex has great swordsmanship technique, and his mastery of magic was enough to achieve the title of Archmage. By combining these two, he is unleashing a higher-ranked attack. It is not an impossible task, but for that, a person must have superior mastery in both swordsmanship and magic. Also, along with the time it takes to master both, it is necessary to harmonize them perfectly, otherwise the attack will be useless, and as you know, so far no one has been able to reach the top by walking two paths, Christina muttered like an expert. "Except him," Catherine said with a bitter smile. "See, didn't I tell you that our husband is great?" Ray mocked Catherine. But contrary to her expectation, Catherine agreed with her words and nodded her head as she looked at the scene in amazement, surprising Raya. At the same time, a few moments before the explosion, clam, 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 clam. On the other side of the forest, a fierce battle was taking place. Sparks flew everywhere, forming bright flashes that disappeared in an instant, followed by the metallic sound of metal colliding. Bang! 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 Small shockwaves created due to the clashes began to crush the rocks and boulders on the sides while destroying the trees. Mordek was now fighting the demon-masked man, who was starting to panic as he was unable to inflict a single wound on Mordek. The more he struggled, the more he thought something was wrong, as although he was unable to break through Mordek's defense, Mordek was also unable to inflict a single wound on him. He was also a master, and his senses sensed that Mordek was also at the master rank. Still, it felt quite strange as he felt that Mordek was easily facing him and seemed to be in a defensive stance. As both of them were interacting, they heard a whistling sound of something coming down from the sky. "Shit!" They both shouted at the same time and began to gain some distance, but a strong shockwave hit them in the back and threw them to the ground. Mordek, upon seeing the huge explosion, cried inwardly, "Your Majesty, I am your loyal follower. Why do you wish to kill me so much?" Mordek ran towards the masked man as he tried to protect himself from the aftermath of the explosion that shook the entire place. As the explosion took place, not a speck of vegetation was left, and the place that used to be a forest had turned into a barren land with a dark brown soil that seemed to have been completely burned. A large crater was formed in the center, while many dried and burnt corpses of enemies were left behind, leaving a pungent smell. Sweeping away the trees and dust that seemed to be on him, Demonsis became extremely scared and thought that he should run away as soon as possible, otherwise he would die without any remains to put in the coffin. But as he started to run, he found Mordek blocking his path and tried to push him away by attacking him with all the strength he could muster. But Mordek simply swung his sword casually to deflect his attack. With a panicked expression, he tried to race his mind to find a way to get past it and was thrown to the ground. A sudden idea appeared in his mind. He got up and attacked again, but when Mordek deflected his attack, He turned his body and threw a handful of dust into his eyes. "Oh, bastard," Mordek screamed while rubbing his eyes. Chapter 195, Wrong. Demosthenes tried to attack Mordek, but even though he was blinded by the dirty tricks, his sense was enough to deflect the attack. Even though he found it difficult to defend himself, it was enough to buy him some time until his vision cleared. Demosthenes gives up on aiming for Mordek's left and decides to quickly flee. Demosthenes found the opportunity and started running alongside Mordek as he ran away. Bang! He had barely gone a few meters when a huge sword struck him. He screamed in pain and jumped back, but to his horror, his head was clamped tightly like a pair of pliers and he was unable to break free from the hold. Bang! With a loud noise, his head crashed into the ground, making a huge hole in it, and Alex, who was holding his head, lifted it up and started hitting it again and again. Dust and dirt entered his openings as Alex repeated the idea mercilessly. Alex, after hitting him with all his might and with a sincere smile, took the mask. "Let's see how ugly your face is that you have to hide it under the mask. I sincerely feel sorry for you for being born with a shitty face. My condolences, brother." Demosthenes, who heard Alex's mocking words, nearly died, vomiting blood. The humiliation was too much for him to digest. Alex took his mask and placed it on his face with a smile. "Don't worry, Demosthenes, I will make sure to finish the task you have been given," Alex muttered as he reached for his head, sending him into eternal darkness. Alex asked his men to kill those who were still there. It's time to move forward with a plan. A falcon carrying a secret scroll was flying around a huge castle and finally landed on the window and started pecking at the glass. A pair of hands appeared and picked up the eagle inside. He lifted the eagle up and took out the small paper scroll tied around its legs. He tore off the small paper scroll, opened the letter and studied the contents with a curious look. His eyes widened and a playful smile appeared on his lips. "Leader, I have tried to carry out the task you gave me with the utmost perfection. The King of Nevin is a hot-blooded idiot who seemed to look down on others." He leapt to the front and started swinging a huge axe like a madman. The army was full of cowards, and the soldiers made mistakes and failed to deploy the formation they were taught. Under our relentless attack, many of them were injured and their pathetic weapons were severely damaged. I snuck in and attacked the King of Nevin, his ego getting out of hand, and I severely injured him. I could have caused critical damage to him, but General Mordek appeared as a savior and protected him. He took the reins of the soldiers and with all his might cleared our forces. We must be careful of him. He is quite strong and has reached the epic rank. We should not underestimate him, leader. Unfortunately, I cannot return because Mordek had assigned him a tracking skill. I cannot get rid of it now, and I am also injured in the fight and had to flee to protect my life. So, this humble servant of yours apologizes to you." Folding the paper, the man laughed and muttered, "Let's throw them a feast and rub their wounds with salt." After taking care of things and cleaning up the traces of the battle that occurred that night, Alex's troops entered the Bright Kingdom, after which the main cities were present. They finally found the watchtowers and checkpoints with large fences. It was a simple checkpoint set up by each kingdom and could be set up at the borders, and there was usually a battalion of people who rotated their shifts here, and they were mostly sent here to suffer for the higher-ups. It was a dead zone for people if your kingdom had frequent wars, but it became a place of business when your kingdom enjoyed long-lasting peace. These people who were sent here as punishment profited a lot by asking for ransoms from other people to give them the right to enter. In fact, this guard and the watchtowers were of no use in case of war. They were just there to intimidate others. When Alex's troops entered, Alex was shocked to see the guards lined up holding their weapons and pointing them at us. "Beggars, who are all of you?" a man standing in front of them shouted. Alex had asked his soldiers to change their appearance and take out all the broken weapons and rusty swords to act like warriors who have suffered greatly. It was time for the Oscar-level actors within them to come out and show their skills. "Stop!" Alex waved his hand and the advancing troop instantly stopped. Even the war horses the soldiers were riding froze instantly, as if Alex's order was the law. Alex raised his eyebrows upon hearing the man's question in a mocking tone. Although his men carried broken weapons and wore shabby armor, that can't hide the fact that this was an army marching with an official flag. Even a brain-dead idiot can infer the difference. It was a direct insult to his people, but as a good-level actor, he had to prove his worth while Alex pondered the man's intentions. Alex can only think of two situations. Either this man, like most of the others, knew nothing about the stage and symbol of his new kingdom, or this man had been asked to act like this from above. Seeing the burly man with curly black hair looking at them with a big smile on his face, Alex can already sympathize with him. This guy was guaranteed to be a typical cannon fodder extra who thought he would be rewarded after doing what he was told to do, but only an experienced and eager chunny boy like him knows how his fate will end up. Alex stared at his man and rolled his eyes. Mom. No, I mean Ian, just go and settle the troublesome matter, Alex ordered. Sending Max may cause more trouble than necessary. Ian got off his horse and walked towards the boy and asked in a gentle tone, Hey buddy, what's wrong with you? Who are you guys? Identify yourselves first. Are you members of the rebel army that is going to invade Bright and cause unrest? If you're thinking that, then stop thinking naively. We're proud and dedicated citizens of Bright, and we would give our lives to stop you from entering without permission. We may not be able to stop you, but we can cause irreversible damage to you. Ian, who just wanted to have a friendly chat, was dumbfounded for a moment as he watched the man speak such heroic words filled with courage. He felt like he had heard the joke of the decade. Although he was still trying to maintain his friendly smile, he was cursing inside. You should at least have the strength to speak such words. You want to give your lives. Do you have enough men to give them? You're going to disappear with a simple sneeze. Ian sneered at the man who was right in square range while most of the followers weren't awake. No, that's not it. Can you see the flag waving over there? We are an army of the Kingdom of Leonhardt, which was formerly known as Nevin. You see the king over there sitting on the horse as he rests on that man's shoulders and had been severely injured. Ian spoke as he pointed his finger. The man looked at the flag and looked at Alex, who was coughing up blood and his face was as pale as a sheet of paper. He seemed to be seriously injured. I can't allow you to. You have to give me proof, the man said in a virtuous voice. Ian looked back and received Alex's signal, handing him a gold coin and putting it in his sleeves. What are you doing? I am an honest man. I do my job with absolute loyalty to the kingdom. Ian took out another gold coin and placed it in the man's hands, but seeing that he didn't take the offered money, Ian sighed and his expression turned cold. Brother, I salute you for faithfully carrying out your job, but you are delaying the king's coronation, which will be held in Zenith. The emperor himself issued a decree to invite His Majesty Alex. If you don't allow us to move from here, then fine, we won't have any problems, but can you handle the consequences of doing this? Not just you, but your entire kingdom, Ian shouted angrily as he pointed his finger at the man. Do you think you can take responsibility? The man's back was drenched in sweat upon hearing his words. His henchman, who stood there with a mocking smile on his face, suddenly felt his scales go numb. Suddenly, the man took Ian's hand and muttered with a smile. Since I was little, my father taught me many things. He had said that one should not accept bribes, but if one offers it kindly, one should accept it gracefully. He spoke and took Ian's coins and shouted. Make way, let them pass, the man ordered. Ian smiled and waved his hand. The man who watched the entire army pass by did not know why, but he received sympathetic glances from several people. After he left, he sighed in relief and wiped away his sweat as he fiddled with the 2 gold coins that were equivalent to 10 years of his salary. He. I've benefited from both sides, he muttered and asked the messenger to quickly report the situation of the King of Nevin, who seemed to be seriously injured. The army safely passed to other places without any hindrance and was already given leeway without causing any trouble. There was some occasional harassment trying to shake their mindset, but seeing the army not reacting to them made them feel that they were either too weak to retaliate or too tired after being injured to fight again. Still, the so-called peaceful journey came to an end when they were stopped while passing through a duke's territory. It was Duke Walmart's territory and the duke himself stopped them. Sensing the hostile intent, the expression on his face changed a little. Honorable King and Queen of Nevin, don't take this the wrong way. We have no hostile intent. Alex stepped out of the carriage with an exhausted look and asked, What do you wish for? Chapter 196, Invitation. Duke Walmart stared at Alex, who needed the shoulders of his aides to support him from falling. His right arm was bandaged and he looked to be severely injured. The faces of the soldiers didn't look too good either. There were many scratches and bruises on their bodies and fatigue was quite evident on their faces. They looked as if they had been through hell. Duke Walmart bowed his head and said, Honorable King of Nevin, we heard that Leonhardt of Nevin's newly appointed expeditionary forces would be traveling through here, so I and most of the ministers along with other nobles have come here to welcome you. There may have been minor conflicts between Bright and Nevin in the past, but all of those things are now a thing of the past. As you know, there is a saying that there is no eternal friendship nor eternal enemies. We are willing to become the closest aid of the Leonhardt Kingdom, Duke Walmart spoke in a humble tone. Alex shook his head and was about to speak, but he coughed violently and gasped for air, and it seemed like his wounds had opened up. Take Alex inside and treat him. I'll take care of everything from now on. Everyone heard a sharp, clear voice followed by the descent of a woman who looked like an absolute fairy from the sky. Anyone who saw her gulped and even skipped a beat. After her descended another woman whose beauty rivaled the other. Although she was wearing a veil, she couldn't make them look away but rather attracted their attention, wanting to see the face under the veil. Cough, cough. Catherine, take the things here and be careful, Alex whispered in his ears as he was led to the carriage. Catherine walked forward gracefully under the numerous gazes with an indifferent expression and spoke. Nice to meet you, Duke Walmart, the pleasure is mine, Queen Catherine. Catherine nodded and asked them the reason for their detention. Your Highness, we have heard of the unfortunate incidents that all of you have suffered at the Bright Border. I can assure you that our kingdom had nothing to do with such a heinous deed, but we are still aware of the mistakes that led to such incidents. Due to our carelessness, your men and soldiers have been seriously injured, so we wanted to apologize to you. We ask that you stay at our place and recuperate for a bit before continuing on your journey. Also, we have prepared some sincere gifts for all of you. Duke Walmart spoke with a pleading expression that expressed her guilt. Catherine, who was watching him intently, raised her eyebrows and spoke coldly. Duke Walmart appreciates your kind intention, but don't you think that your side still lacks sincerity, eh? What do you mean? Duke Walmart asked with a dumbfounded expression. Since it was your kingdom's negligence, shouldn't the members of the royal families offer such a gesture? Catherine asked with a faint smile on her lips. Your Highness regrets your rude behavior, but an unfortunate situation has occurred, which is why I have to make such an offer in His Majesty's stead, Duke Walmart confided and began to explain the situation. The first prince had lost his honor after losing a battle against the Prince of Regan and had lost his senses, followed by a series of crises. His Majesty had recently collapsed, due to which there is an atmosphere of chaos. The second prince has been running around trying to take control of the situation while suppressing the rebels who aspire to the throne and has been quite busy. Although he is quite busy, he promised to visit us today, so we sincerely ask that you accept our offer. Catherine pondered for a moment and looked at the soldiers who were watching her with pitiful eyes and finally nodded. Duke Walmart smiled warmly and shouted, Give me my orders, prepare the welcoming ceremony for King Alex. Today we will hold a banquet at my mansion. Let the entire duchy celebrate his presence and show the world how well we treat guests. Your Highness, please follow us, Duke Walmart said as he stood close behind Catherine. The expedition forces followed closely behind them as the ministers who were present there fawned over Catherine and Christina to their heart's content, singing the praises. Although Catherine was indifferent to all of this and did not pay attention to it, Christina was a little annoyed by all of these people fawning over her. Unlike Catherine, who was quite used to it, Christina did not resist it. Besides, if someone dared to do this in the army, she would make sure to teach them a lesson, and in Nevin, only a person who wishes to seek death with their senses clouded would behave like this. Duke Walmart, who spoke very gracefully, asked, Lady Christina, as far as I know, you don't seem to be wearing a veil. It's because of that unfortunate incident that I have to wear a veil, Christina murmured in a sad voice. Oh. What unfortunate incident could that be, Lady Christina? Would it be possible to share the pain with us? Duke Walmart asked with a warm smile. Of course it's fine to refuse if it's a personal matter. Christina shook her head and lifted her veil. The people surrounding her who were watching the scene waiting for the moment to see her face suddenly froze like statues. They all felt a sharp pain in their chest upon seeing her face and felt as if they were struck by thunder. Although her face could be said to be beautiful, it was not, as it was now riddled with painful scars. Lady Christina, what happened to your face? Who can dare to commit such an evil act? The people around them started murmuring in an angry voice, and it was genuine anger as they wondered who this cruel bastard was who inflicted such damage on a flower. The scars were earned by me during the war with Amidon. It was when the king of Amidon attacked us, Christina muttered, looking at the people around her. You don't have to pity me. I'll ask the priest to get rid of it when I reach the zenith. So please don't worry about me. Even though she said this, no one was in the mood to chant because their mood had been spoiled after seeing such devastation. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelists. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 197, Banquet. After the arrangements, Alex's expedition forces took a break. Duke Walmart pleasantly muttered like a bootlicker, "We've arranged a splendid dinner in the evening to entertain all the honorable people and all those powerful Leonhardt warriors." Duke Walmart wanted to get closer and become more intimate with his flattering smile, but the moment Catherine shook her head, it made him swallow the words he was going to say and shut his mouth. He took a step back as he saw Catherine glaring at him. Inside Duke Walmart's mansion at night, a grand stage was set up, with a large buffet and a long red carpet to welcome the people. Mordek and all the military soldiers stayed outside, yet they were offered a suitable place to settle where a proper banquet was held, but it was done in the presence of an intimidating gaze from the bright soldiers, who threw some casual jokes and mocked them with a sarcastic tone. Max, the hothead, and Antoine, the musclehead, wanted to show off the strength of their bulging muscles, but they were immediately stopped by the old man Mordek. Still, it was a rather peaceful atmosphere. Yes, it was seemingly peaceful. At the other end of the banquet, Alex walked in followed by his two wives. As he entered, all eyes fell on him. It was a mix of emotions containing envy, hatred, and disgust. Alex knew that these people would look down on him, be jealous of him, and try to make fun of him. But after a few moments, he couldn't hold back his laughter as he understood the reason for their envy. They were more jealous because their wives and daughters were fascinated by his looks instead of allowing him to marry godly wives. It all started when these nobles and ministers tried to praise their wives and their beauty, making them angry, but now it was the turn of their wives, who feasted their eyes on Alex, who, although pale-faced and tired-looking, was quite handsome. As Alex was conversing kindly with them, a loud voice was heard. "Everyone please welcome the second son of the bright kingdom, Prince Edward." Alex looked at the man with a gentle smile as he took a sip of wine and stared at Edward, giving him a gentle smile and nodding at everyone's comments. His smile was hideous and could mask his inner expression. "What an atrocious bastard," Alex muttered softly. Edward begged for forgiveness and turned his head towards Alex. As soon as their gazes met, everyone could see sparks flying everywhere. Edward, who still had his warm and gentle smile, raised his hand to shake it. "It's a pleasure to meet the legendary King of Nevin, who is famous all over the world, and his name has been a hot topic since childhood." Alex could hear the sarcasm in his words, but still, the smile remained on his face and he shook his head. "Ha, Mr. Edward, I'll take that as a compliment. By the way, thank you for inviting us here. My soldiers needed a break, so," Alex said. Edward simply shook his head and muttered, "You're embarrassing us. The honor is ours. I can't see your third wife." "Where is she? Are you talking about Raya?" "She was a little reluctant to appear here." "So, is she resting in her room? Well, that's a pity. I wanted her to grace my kingdom with her presence. Since she's a maid and always keeps herself hidden, not much is known about her. Being a maid restricts her from appearing here, but King Alex, if you didn't bring her here thinking it would lower your dignity, you don't have to worry about it. My people are open-minded and make no distinctions between people based on their status. Even if she's a maid, she has the right to enter here." Alex narrowed his eyes as he could feel Edward repeatedly emphasizing that Raya was a maid and a commoner. Even Catherine and Christina's expressions hardened a little as they were fully aware of Edward's intention. Not only was he humiliating and insulting him, but he was also testing Alex's patience. Edward, who knew that Alex knew his identity and expected him to be a bad-tempered person, began to go crazy and swear around him. But contrary to his expectations, Alex smiled and lingered on speaking. "Don't worry, Sir Edward, next time we visit you we will surely keep that in mind." Edward's expression fell a little when Alex didn't fall for his provocation. The party continued as usual. Except for the men staring at their wives and the women staring at him, nothing else happened. But at the end of the celebration, Edward approached Alex and whispered, "I can see your arrogance and the eyes you look at me with. You think you are invincible just because you are stronger. It is still unknown if the expeditionary force could reach Zenith, and even if it does, will it arrive in one piece? You will soon be a laughingstock, and the image of your weak and injured soldiers has already traveled far, showing how weak you are. Who knows, you may already be dying on the way. It's a shame to let the beauties by your side suffer, but don't worry, after your death, they will soon find a new home." Alex, who heard every word, nodded and said, "Thank you for informing me about all this. Then, goodbye, and good luck to you too," Alex whispered into her ears. Alex walked into the room with Christina and Catherine where a girl in black was sitting. Alex threw the coat away and sighed. Ha 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 ha, I want to kill that bastard. Catherine laughed at the sight. You don't have to act now. I can see how tired you feel with all this. You can relax a little. Alex nodded and plopped down on the sofa. The shirt that was clinging to his chest suddenly bulged and the top button came off. The expression on his face changed a little and the body shortened. Sister Catherine, acting as an older brother is difficult. I can't even scold the other party while yelling all that nonsense. Christina smiled at her complaining. Don't worry Alice, your older brother will soon show them the meaning of despair. Chapter 198, Bright's Bullying. A few hours ago before arriving at Duke Walmart's territory. As Leonhardt's expeditionary forces passed through the area, the loud sound of metal clashing instantly frightened everyone. Leonhardt's forces reacted quickly and raised their guard. By then, they had already positioned themselves in a defensive formation. The defenders raised their shields and brought down huge iron towers, shields locked together, forming a tall defensive tower as a safety measure around the royal carriage. The wall curved and surrounded the king's carriage and protected it against possible arrow projectiles. The most powerful warriors had already brought out their battalions and rushed forward, passing through the tall trees patrolling the area. Their long hair fluttered in the wind and their tall figures gave everyone a sense of security. Ian and Ben, who were in the lead, were like two ferocious tigers intently watching what was happening with their dark red cloaks fluttering in the wind. Leo, who was standing in front of the carriage, led out a hoarse and ferocious roar that sent a warning to the others as a terrifying killing intent flashed in his eyes. Ian was looking around and suddenly raised his hand. A flash of an arrow appeared before his eyes, but Ian was faster and caught it with his hand. Crack! Ian crushed the arrow while Ben narrowed his eyes as he heard the screams and metallic clanking coming closer. Ian noticed many figures nearby. Some people don't fear death, Ian said hoarsely, and his figure disappeared. The trees and ground shook as a fierce battle broke out, ending as quickly as it seemed. Ian, who stopped 3 men to gain some information, suddenly heard a loud voice. Please don't kill him. Ian narrowed his eyes and saw 100 well-armed infantrymen standing in front of him. Who are you? Do you identify yourself? Ben asked, raising his sword. We are on a joint expedition to catch these people. These 12 gangsters have killed many and plundered the resources. Look, there is a reward of 5 gold coins on his name, the captain of the joint expedition forces said. Ian asked the soldiers to convey it to the king. Hand over the culprit to them, Ian. Ian heard the loud order from behind and threw them towards Bright's forces. The captain nodded and the man was about to leave when he heard a loud voice. Did I allow you to leave? The captain's eyes narrowed when he heard the king's voice and he spoke in a humble tone. Your Majesty, did I show any kind of disrespect? You said that they had a bounty of 5 gold coins. Then, hand over the 5 gold coins to me. Leonhardt is in urgent need of money. 5 gold coins means a lot. The captain was speechless upon hearing the king's words. Your Majesty, we don't have that much money. Inform your superiors if I don't receive 5 gold coins before I leave Bright. Bright will surely lose more than they owe. Alex's voice echoed throughout the place. Although the captain wanted to mock him, he didn't know why, but he felt that the words he heard would soon come true. In this way, their forces had been harassed one after another. Sometimes they were attacked by bandits, sometimes monsters or mercenaries. But things started to get tough and Bright crossed the boundaries many times, seeing Alex facing everything without fighting back. They even started to form a preconceived notion that King Alex was a coward who didn't like to fight in other territories. It's like saying that even a lion behaves like a dog in another lane. As they moved forward, they no longer saw a large number of Bright Kingdom infantry and knights, but there were around dozens of Bright scouts following Leonhardt's troops and closely monitoring his troops' movements. Max was already losing patience and even rushed to pull out his axe trying to kill them, but was stopped by Ben at the last moment. Bright's soldiers had their own freedom and could do anything legally and go anywhere in their kingdom. If Max and Alex attack with their troops, that would give them a reason to start the war and they would be considered guilty. They just needed a suitable reason to fight back, but since Alex was staying behind, Bright threw all kinds of dirty laundry at him. Around the evening of that day, the troop finally came out of the thick mountains and forest, which gave them a sense of relief, but the peaceful and happy atmosphere didn't last long. The soldiers started to feel unrestrained in the open space, and the cool and fast wind blowing there cleared their feeling of stuffiness and annoyance caused by those bastard Bright forces. But as soon as they came out, They were greeted by a large number of soldiers near the fortress. The soldiers were armed and well equipped and were ready for war. The fortress had been formed by cutting into the mountain. At one end of the mountain were many watchtowers which gave a strategic advantage to the archers, and from there one could see the entire battlefield. Between two mountains was a narrow valley or pass which was the only way to pass through. If there was a war, they would surely be in an unfavorable position due to the terrain, and Bright, on the other hand, seemed to be fully prepared and had a huge strategic advantage here. Just a single order from the superiors and Leonhardt's forces had to face a full-scale war. Bloodshed was just around the corner and the atmosphere was quite tense. Many soldiers lost their rhythm as they tried to contain the anger and boiling blood of the rushing heads and kill the enemies in front of them. Alex looked at the scene with a calm expression, as if he could somehow predict what was going to happen. As expected, they did not fight them and explained to them that a military exercise was taking place there. Alex, who had remained silent throughout the journey, had already recorded the marks that he needed to take care of later. Chapter 199, From Night to Slaughter. These Bright scumbags are too much, Alice growled angrily. Her chest rose and fell due to indignation and her sullen expression made her look rather cute. Catherine chuckled at the sight and sat on the edge of the bed as she waited her legs out. Alex had asked Alice to leave earlier and hide in Bright. He had placed his soldiers who would soon disperse in Brights to gain information. When Alex arrived at the designated location, he and Rita snuck away while Alice pretended that Alex took control. Since they came with Alice, there was no control over them, unlike Alex's squad who had been checked countless times or had been harassed. Furthermore, Alice bore a striking resemblance to Alex except for the color of the eyes. Thus, with a bit of the magic manipulation spell given to her by Alex, she can change her form. But this was only because Alice's face was somehow close to Alex's and she could maintain magic for 6 hours a day. Sister Catherine, Sister Christina. Big Brother had been suffering in silence. On top of that, that dirty bastard insulted Sister Rhea and I couldn't do much. If my brother was there, he might break his neck, Alice said. Remembering that bastard's dirty and rotten face, she wanted to spit on that face. Catherine smiled as she watched Alice grumble and her heart warmed a little as she saw Alice care so much about Alex. You're worrying too much, Alice. Let me show you the way of lions, Catherine said as she looked at Christina who smiled a little. When lions retreat silently, that doesn't mean they're retreating, but they're simply preparing to fight back. Today is going to be an unforgettable night for Bright. Hell, Catherine's lips curved upwards. I'm a little worried about this, Christina said with an uneasy expression. Huh? Both Catherine and Christina exclaimed with surprised expressions. Christina, what are you worried about? Catherine asked. No. Don't get me wrong, I'm not worried about Alex. Christina waved her hand to calm them down. I'm worried about Bright. What if Alex lost control and destroyed the entire fortress in a fit of rage? As soon as Christina spoke her worries, the entire atmosphere fell silent, followed by a sound of someone gulping. It was another night. Except for the bright moon, there were no twinkling stars in the sky. Everything else was the same as the night before, except today was the night of slaughter. A night that would make many scream in agony, filling them with despair without knowing what hit them. It is a night that will be remembered in Bright for eons to come. Like a gust of wind, dark figures covered in a veil of night moved like lightning. As they passed through the village, they only felt a strong gust of wind blow past them. Blood splattered, bodies piled up, and an intense killing intent filled the sky as the figure passed through the places. Swish, swish, swish. As the group of people passed through the engraved marks, a quick flash lit up for a moment in the darkness, followed by several heads rolling across the ground. After slaughtering everyone until they reached the current location with unstoppable momentum, they stood on the top of the mountain looking down at the fortress below. Mount Sun Fortress. The place where most of the evildoers who tried to harm their soldiers on multiple occasions lay. Although there was no large-scale war, some of their soldiers were truly injured. He could remember the tension and heavy atmosphere as he passed by that place where they could attack at any time if they let their guard down. Trapped in the narrow valley between mountains on both sides, if the situation worsened, except for the elites, there was no way anyone could survive. Just because I was passive, you think you can get rid of my head? Do they think I'm soft rice? They're bastards, Alex muttered. Alex gave a sinister smile and took the demon-shaped mask and put it on his face. Rhea, what do you think? Do you think I look handsome? Alex said in a playful tone. Yes, my lord, you look charming. It gives you a bad boy vibe that makes you attractive, Riaya chuckled. Alex stared at Riaya's assassin suit, which was soaked in blood. The Shadow Queen's desire to kill seemed to be in full swing. Cough. Cough. Your Majesty, you shouldn't show so much affection in public. Alex looked around and smiled a little at Peru's awkward expression. Behind him was a battalion of wolf tribesmen and well-trained assassins whose appearance had been changed to that of humans who lost their minds. Listen to my orders. Riaya and I will take down the watchtowers. You will take the position. As soon as you see a large fire lighting up, you must in for the fall of the watchtowers and begin the takeover. Don't take down the enemies. Just kill them as fast as you can before they start making noise, Alex ordered. Take care of the patrolling officers first, Riaya. Let's enjoy ourselves to the fullest and unleash madness. In one of the watchtowers, 5 archers were present. 3 of them were sleeping while 2 remained awake. Ho-ha ho-ha, one of them yawned heavily, rubbing his eyes. Today was a fun day. We scared the shit out of those weaklings, another said and laughed. Ha-ho-ha-ho-ha, but his laughter stopped midway when he noticed something was wrong. Huh? Hey, why aren't you answering? Did you fall asleep? The man muttered as he rubbed his eyes and turned his back, but what greeted him was a dagger that pierced his neck and cut it. He opened his mouth to scream but no voice came out of his mouth. As he rolled his eyes he found his companions sleeping there with a trail of blood running down their necks. Riaya pulled out the dagger and blood gushed out like a fountain. She wiped the blood off the dagger as she muttered to herself. 1 down, 2 more to go. Chapter 200, From Night to Slaughter 2. Bang. 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 Like a ghost appearing in the dark of the night, Alex appeared and decapitated the archers and vanished, leaving behind the deathly silence. He would nimbly crawl on their backs slowly, and seeing the opportunity, he would shut their mouths and send them to his dear devil friend to hire them for jobs. He could use sleeping spells to render them unconscious and give them a silent, painless death. But there is no joy, is there? He wanted them to look at him deeply, filled with fear and despair, before the dark uncle came and caressed them into sleep for eternity. Before it was just a grudge of the kingdom, and Alex thought they were doing all this to follow orders and please the higher-ups to get their promotion, but of course not. These donkey-minded men were just as despicable as their bastard masters. Not only did they mock him, they dared to speak ill of his wives and even ridicule them. If it were any other situation, he would have stuck his tongue out at them and hung them on display on the walls and asked them to look at them with their damn eyes. Currently, he was dynamite that could explode at any moment. If it weren't for revealing his identity, he would put all his power and annihilate everything here. As the group of men fell with a loud noise, one of the men who was asleep suddenly woke up. Alex immediately reacted and pulled out the dagger, and the man, unable to react, closed his eyes instinctively. He didn't have time to scream for his life, and the dagger had already pierced the skin of his neck, but surprisingly the man didn't die. With his jaw hanging open in disbelief, he looked down to see the dagger touching his skin, forming a small cut with blood oozing out. Alex raised his eyebrows as he looked at the man. Through his advanced senses and mana sensor, he remembered this man. He was standing guard downstairs, and when others were mistreating him and his wife, he tried to correct them and ended up getting beaten up. He doesn't seem to be the bad guy. Who are you? The man asked in a shaky tone. Alex pulled back his dagger and muttered before knocking the guy out. I'm a demon, It's already done, Alex said as he wiped his sweat. Doing things that are out of my style is hard, goddess of war. Why didn't you teach me how to act like an assassin? Alex complained and jumped up. Riaya, who had learned superior stealth techniques that can hide her presence and even her breath to utmost perfection, snuck together with Riaya inside the fortress. Alex already lit a torch, signaling them. Blow, blow, blow. After knocking out the guards patrolling the gate, Alex pulled out his sword. My lord, what are you doing? Riaya whispered in a panicked tone. Alex smiled upon hearing her words, but it was hidden under his mask, and taking a stance, he stabbed his sword forward. Piercing thrust. With a loud resounding noise, Alex thrust his sword out, coating it with mana. Boom. With a loud noise that sounded like thunder, the massive and heavy gates were blown to pieces. The massive and powerful gate that stood there in all its glory was now in tatters, like a torn rag. The loud noise alarmed everyone present. Many were taken aback by the sudden noise that sounded like thunder. Those who were patrolling ran towards the gate, while those who were sleeping or resting were suddenly awakened by a loud sound. Time to kill? Alex roared, and with a huge, powerful leap, he strode forward, leaving Riaya with a shocked expression. Did they come here to sneak in and destroy things? Why were they making so much noise then? Rhea thought to herself. Alex had planned to quietly nip the matter in the bud without anyone knowing, but he changed things after getting the information. That Edward was an eagle-eyed bastard and was quite tricky to deal with. If he does things quietly, they can somehow shift all the blame onto him and accuse him of sneaking around and doing all sorts of things that could prove fatal to him. But after receiving the news about the unexpected and not so welcoming ceremony where he was going to be humiliated, he figured he should make a loud noise. If the information reached him early, while the fighting was still going on, he would first get himself and his troops under control. Since Alice was impersonating him and his maid Rhea, they would get through the situation quietly. With this demon mask and the wolf tribe member, he would put all the blame on this ugly demon-masked man and confuse Edward. His sixth sense would soon scream that Leonhardt had a hand in this, but he had no way to prove it and had to swallow his anger. As I had said before, the stage was set and the audience had already gathered. It was about time for the drama to begin. Let's begin the first act. The ground soldiers took out everything they could get their hands on and ran towards the gates as if their lives were at stake. The groups of guards on the walls also began to rapidly descend, leaving the walls unprotected, allowing Rhea to sneak up. As for Alex, he decided to release the maniac within him. Boom! With a loud bang, the group of soldiers rushing over were thrown into the air. They were suddenly hit by something that descended upon them with great momentum. One of them, who shook off his fear, was quickly kicked away and sent flying. Bang! 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 The soldiers were blown away in one fell swoop and rolled all over the place. As the dust dispersed, they were horrified to see a masked man whose eyes were shining with a crimson glint filled with madness, shining brightly, and he spoke in a rough, raspy voice. Show me fear, show me despair, because the demon of madness feeds on your despair and grows stronger. Ho ha ho ho ha ho ha. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.